Something tells me that you could name that tune in about 3 notes. It is a signature from Tears for Fears, and on this day back in 1985, 41 years ago, Everybody Wants to Rule the World began a 2-week run at number 1 on the U.S. singles charts. That was the first U.S. number 1 for Tears for Fears. Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Number 1 on this day back in 1985. This day is the 8th of June, 2026. We are midway, very close to midway through the year already. Where does the time go? They tell me that it goes faster the older you get, and I've got to believe that that is absolutely the case. But if we just take a moment to stop, smell the roses, and maybe look at the sky with appropriate eyewear in place, of course, another gorgeous sunny day. My beloved said to me last night as we enjoyed dinner outdoors, we have been waiting for days like this. Do you remember that brutal winter? And now, even into the evening hours, we can enjoy the beautiful outdoors because we are in a stretch of absolutely spectacular weather. Forget the fact that it's supposed to rain for the next several days. We have been treated to a really nice, long run of beautiful weather. And did that ever help us out over the weekend? Let me tell you, it was an incredibly busy weekend for the Farwell for Hire fundraising campaign. As you know, we launched our 50-50 raffle last Monday, a week ago today. More on that in just a moment because it had a great first week. And then we officially launched our campaign on Thursday night, last Thursday, with a party at Block 3 Brewing in St. Jacobs. It was a fantastic night. So many of you came out to celebrate with us. We loved it. We got things off to a rip-roaring start. And then immediately the next day, Friday, after work in the evening, I was in beautiful Hespeler Village where the main street was closed for the first time this summer. And I know because I've read the coverage of the annual street closure, and it's not for everybody. I get that. But I'll tell you what, having been in the heart of Hespeler Village on Friday night, it's for most everybody. And businesses were over the moon at the activity and crowd on the streets. There was just something special about it. And so many people were saying, we need to do this on more than just weekends in the summer. We need to do this all year round. And look, I get it. You can't just flip a switch and do something like that overnight. There are lots of logistics at play here, but oh my goodness gracious, did we have ourselves a time at the Aging Oak right there in the heart of Hespeler Village. Thanks to Peter and the rest of the team at the Aging Oak for putting up with me for the evening. I'm not much of a server, but I am a talker, and I got to chat with a number of people over the evening as they enjoyed the patio that was now available because the street was closed. So an extra special good morning to Lorraine and Dennis. Originally from Newfoundland, it's no wonder we connected as well as we did. I feel like I'm a kindred spirit with my fellow Newfies, many of whom now make a home in Cambridge. And Dennis, I'm not going to forget the promise that you made that I would be able to drive your beautiful automobile someday. I am holding you to it. Also, Grant and Meg, big junior hockey fans, and they call the Aging Oak their neighborhood cheers bar. And they walk in, and it's a friendly atmosphere, and many people know who they are, and they know who the other people are, and they are also avid listeners to this show. So I thank you both very much for that, Grant and Meg. And then Evan and Tom, who were at the patio or on the patio enjoying an evening outdoors after a tough day's work. I think they said they were golfing on Friday and then stopped by the Aging Oak for a beverage and a bite to eat. And it was just great shooting the breeze with these guys, passionate Rangers fans, regular listeners of the show. I cannot tell you how much that means to us here at the station. We really appreciate the support, and it's great to connect outside of this show. Remember, of course, this is the most interactive radio program anywhere in Waterloo Region. So the minute we start our show every day, our phone lines are open to you at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Tom even said as he was leaving that the show is a joy in his day. I mean, that is some pretty high praise. And look, I get it. Not everybody is into making phone calls and participating live on the air. That's perfectly okay. You consume the show however you want to consume the show, live, on podcast, whatever it happens to be. And then when we get the chance to talk to one another and meet one another in person, you know that I'm here for it. And I'm so glad we could have that opportunity Friday night at the Aging Oak. And that was just the beginning. My goodness, I saw a handful more of you on Saturday afternoon at Knox Presbyterian Church in Waterloo, where we had a talk from the sewer lady. And then holy moly, did Wilmot Township ever show up on Saturday evening, right on the main street of Baden, Snyder's Road. There we were, out front, the Cereal Griller Kitchen. What a beautiful spot that Becky and Ed have put together for them, a compliment to their food truck. And Ed got that smoker out, and it was like the Pied Piper of barbecue in Baden on Saturday. We did not stop for 2 solid hours. I came home smelling like a campfire, and I loved it. The food was fantastic, but the camaraderie, the opportunity to enjoy one another's company was even better. Turns out Ed and I have a couple of things in common, beer and motorcycles. So I think we became best friends on Saturday, but more to the point, you who showed up in spades, it was all by donation. And we walked out of there on Saturday night with more than $2,000 for cystic fibrosis research. I think we went beyond Baden. I think we got into New Dundee and New Hamburg and other parts of Wilmot Township. What a crowd. What a feeling. It was fantastic. And then we capped everything off on the weekend with one of our Farwell for Hire signature events. And that was deep fried asparagus at Barry's Asparagus and Country Market, just on the cusp of North Dumfries in the south end of, I guess we're up in the north end of Cambridge there. Either way, just the address says Kings Road, Cambridge. We're just on the cusp of North Dumfries, but a beautiful spot. Everybody knows it. Tim even had some strawberries in the country market while we were there on the weekend. But it was all about the asparagus. It's in perfect season. Brad and Christine on the schmuck truck deep fried it up. And again, it was all by donation, a tray at a time for $10 per tray. And we ran our tails off for 3 solid hours and came home with more than $3,300 for cystic fibrosis research. So a busy weekend, yes. A fun weekend, absolutely. And I got to see so many of you in real life, which is my favorite thing to do. So thank you for all of the support. And can I just tell you, we have only just begun. I'll get to that 50-50 again in just a moment. But our phone line's getting busy on this Monday morning. We'll start with Ian. Good morning, Ian.
Hey, Mike. Good morning. I'm sure you know last night was very special for you and I because it was opening night of the Rush Tour. And I don't want to give you any spoilers of which song it started with, what the set list was, nothing. What I want to give a shout out to is my guy, Annika Niles, the new drummer for Rush, is phenomenal. And if you thought she couldn't pull off Neil Peart, she is doing it amazing. I will admit, I have watched some of the YouTube videos from last night. But I hope, Mike, you are going because the whole set is amazing. But, you know, the big other reason I'm calling is because I think this lady will so many other young ladies, not just for drumming, but just, you know, in showing that there are, you know, opportunities that can be had and that, you know, there's a future for some of these women to, like, really shine. And actually, I'm going to say it, show up the men. But I got to tell you, I watched some of it this morning, and it is mind-blowing. And I really hope you're going to one of these shows because it's phenomenal. And also having Lauren on the keyboards. He's adding a little extra touch to some of the stuff as well. So there you go, Mike. And congrats on your success with your events this weekend. And I hope you have a great week.
Thanks, Ian. Good to hear from you. And there will be more events to come. Just keep following our Farwell for Hire Facebook page. It's Farwell, the number 4 Hire on Facebook. Lots more opportunity for you to get involved and us to meet one another face to face in the weeks ahead as we go through the entire month of fundraising for cystic fibrosis research. And yes, Ian, to answer your question directly, absolutely am I going to the Rush show. I'll be there at one of the shows in Toronto in August. So looking forward to that very much. Matthew is with us on the phones this morning too. Good morning, Matthew.
Good morning, Mike. How are you this morning, buddy?
I'm doing just great. Thank you. How are you?
Good. I just want to thank you and say great job on doing the Ranger games, everything in the community. You are a lifesaver to everybody in the community, and everyone in the community loves you so much. And we don't know what we would do without a great person on the radio for the Ranger games and everything you do in the community. We don't know what we do without you.
Matthew.
So we just really appreciate it, and you are a rock star to everybody in the community.
You are much too kind, but I'm going to save that audio, okay, that you love me and you don't know what you'd do without me. I'm going to use that in my next performance review, okay?
Okay, thank you so much, Mike. Have a great one, and let's go Rangers!
Attaboy, I love to hear it. Let's go Rangers! We'll get ready for next season already. That is very kind of you. I appreciate it very much. Listen, I am just a guy who got hired. And let me tell you, can I tell you real quick? I mean, if you ever want to get into the longer backstories, we'll do this. But I came here to this radio station for the first time many years ago while I was working at a Rogers call center. I was kind of between gigs temporarily in radio, and I picked up work at a call center, one of the Rogers call centers. And I was there for 2 weeks, and I did not enjoy it. I will not tell a lie. And I wanted to get back into radio, obviously. I just come home from Thunder Bay. And I got hired by a woman by the name of Gina Lawrence, who was here at 570 then. I took way less money. The call center was paying better than working in the 570 newsroom. But Gina gave me the chance to get on the air here. I'm just a guy who was given a chance to use a microphone every day. You are the rock stars that make this community work. Don't you ever forget it. You're also a force for good, a force for change, a force to be reckoned with. But we had ourselves a time over the weekend, from the Aging Oak to TSG Kitchen to Barry's Asparagus. Why? Because you showed up. It's as simple as it. Doesn't work without you. It does not work without you. Dan, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Listen, I'm sick and tired of these politicians yapping about water. They're not doing nothing but talking about it.
What would you like them to do?
30, 40 years ago, the city gave out different apparatus to save water use, right? Put it on your pipes, put it in your toilet, and it was supposed to cut down on water use. I know 4 guys, 2 of them are out of country students that live in condos. Every weekend, they phone up their mother, father, they come to their condo, they do their laundry, they do their bath, they do everything else. What I'm getting at is they're not going to fix this water situation until they start charging people to use their water. I don't know if these new condos, everything's included, heat, hydro, water, I don't know, but it used to be, and I know some of the old ones still have that. You don't pay for water. And they just abuse it till there's no end.
All right, Dan. Well, listen, I hear where you're coming from. Would like a little more conservation, maybe pay closer to what you perceive the value of that water to be. We will be talking about our water woes less than an hour from now. Regional Councillor Michael Harris will join us just after the 10 o'clock news this morning. One more real quick thing, because I promised I'd come back to it on the Farwell for Hire campaign, and that is our 50-50 raffle. Did we have a big day on Friday or what? We had an early bird prize from TLC Pet Food of $2,500 that we awarded. Congratulations again to Eric who won that. But our 50-50 jackpot grew. And as of this morning, I just looked at it now, the jackpot is worth more than $63,000. That's a take-home prize of more than $31,600. And if we can get that take-home prize up to $35,000, that jackpot up to $70,000, I can finally eat a butter tart again. And oh yeah, by the way, we'll finally let Kyle back on the radio station. He's in the penalty box for using foul language. In other words, mentioning the name of the team that shall not be named. So we're close. 7,000 more in the jackpot, 3,400 more in the take-home prize. But we got to get to 70,000 in the jackpot before I can eat a butter tart, before Kyle gets back on the air. And if you want better incentive, how about $1,500 for yourself? Because that's the early bird prize we're giving away this Friday, thanks to the Better Business Bureau. So get your tickets right now at cf5050.ca. They start for as little as $10.
1, 2, 3, 4. Can I have a little more? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I love.
And let's get to your Farwell Show 5 for this Monday morning, the 8th of June. Number 1, Grand River Pride is calling for Cambridge Mayor Jan Liggett to resign. And the group is also planning a march on City Hall later today. They've also called on the Integrity Commissioner to hold the mayor accountable and also demand her resignation. Today's rally starts this afternoon at 3 on Lower Main, with the march to City Hall beginning at 3:30. Number 2, Louise Arbour will be installed today as Canada's 31st Governor General in a ceremony featuring several symbols of the Crown and the office. The ceremony includes the presentation of the Great Seal of Canada, a symbol of the Crown's authority used to authenticate important state documents and appointments. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, a magnitude 7.8 earthquake struck off the southern Philippines today, killing at least 32 people, injuring more than 200, and triggering a tsunami with waves up to 1 meter high. The quake damaged buildings and infrastructure in the city of General Santos, while tsunami impacts were reported in at least one coastal village. Number 4, you can celebrate the Kitchener Musical Society Band as it kicks off its 150th season. This Sunday marks the celebration of community service and musical excellence for the Kitchener Musical Society Band as they take the audience on a journey through classic band music, including the world premiere of their 150th anniversary commission, Spark, by Canadian composer Robert Buckley. The celebration takes place at the museum in downtown Kitchener this Sunday from 2 until 4. Admission is free. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, the Graffiti Classic Car and Truck Show put on by the Highwaymen Car Club is this Saturday at the Waterloo Rod and Gun Club. Admission is simply by donation to the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
You go to the box, you feel shame.
Oh, feel shame, eh? That might be fitting for our morning wake-up call coming up, because Cambridge Mayor Jan Liggett brought us the Friday afternoon news dump on Friday. Raise your hand if you predicted that one. My hand's way in the air. So many problems we need to rectify, and they are easily rectified. I'll tell you how coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It was an entirely predictable move by Cambridge Mayor Jan Liggett, following what I would describe as an entirely ugly move by Cambridge Mayor Jan Liggett. The predictable move was that the response to Mayor Liggett's interruption of a young person who had been invited to speak at the raising of the pride flag in Cambridge was that Mayor Liggett issued that response on Friday afternoon. You've heard me talk about this before. We call that the old Friday afternoon news dump. It's something that is released intentionally late on a Friday afternoon when most of the full-time news people in newsrooms across the land have gone home for the weekend. It is meant primarily to draw as little attention as possible to said item of news. Furthermore, Mayor Liggett released this as an online social media post, and I don't need to tell somebody of Cambridge Mayor Jan Liggett's experience that that is not how this works. There were multiple requests from news outlets across this region for Mayor Liggett to respond to her interruption of an invited guest at the Cambridge Pride flag raising event. And all of those requests went unanswered. So it was a one-way conversation on a Friday afternoon news dump. Again, I have to emphasize this. That's not how this works. And Mayor Liggett knows that's not how this works. This is Mayor Liggett's attempt to control the narrative and have the tail wag the proverbial dog. There is no excusing the interruption of Sophie Mills when they tried to deliver their remarks at the raising of the pride flag. There is no excuse for that interruption. In Mayor Liggett's words, it was incorrect or unfair to make mention of Ward 6 Councillor Adam Cooper because he's already gone through what he needs to go through, says Mayor Liggett. Maybe at the council level he has, but in the court of public opinion, Sophie and the rest of us, for that matter, are allowed to have our thoughts and feelings on it. And we are allowed to carry those thoughts and feelings well beyond earlier this year when Councillor Cooper was sanctioned, or was that last year? I lose track of time. It doesn't matter. We are allowed to continue carrying our thoughts and feelings on that, and we're allowed to share them. It is as simple as that. What happened at that pride flag raising event was pure and utter censorship, and that's not how a democracy works, and Cambridge Mayor Jan Liggett knows that. So she knows what the Friday afternoon news dump is. She knows about controlling a narrative. She knows about censorship, but clearly doesn't care because all of those boxes were checked. And those are the wrong boxes for any politician to check. One of the other things we have to be aware of here is that we are into Pride Month. And you can feel whatever you want to feel about the pride flag. You can feel whatever you want to feel about people who are in the 2S LGBTQ plus community. But I don't know why we become so concerned over how other people are living their lives or which pronouns it is they would like us to use. It doesn't matter a tinker's darn to your life. Why do we feel the need to insert ourselves into their lives? Just let people be people. Let people love who they want to love. And let's stop with the games. Censorship is not cool. 4 o'clock Friday afternoon news dumps are not cool. None of what happened in Cambridge over the past week has been cool. What is cool is Grand River Pride's rally and march today. I'm behind you 100%. And Mayor Liggett, I know that you know this. You got to do better than a one-way statement posted to social media on a Friday afternoon. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I know that things have changed since a dinosaur like me was in school. When I was in school, it would be this time of the year in elementary school that I would hope for a day just like this one, bright, sunny, and warm. because for whatever reason, our teachers at St. Anne's Elementary in Kitchener enjoyed giving us the opportunity to go outside and play some baseball in the afternoon, or maybe enjoy some time out front the school where there was a big tree that provided shade and we could take a book with us and read out there. That tended to happen in June. And then, of course, by the time I got to St. Jerome's High School, June was the time that we were busily preparing for final exams. So there wasn't a ton of in-class work. And if you worked hard enough, you could get exempted from those exams and start your summer holidays early. I just bring this up because while I know that things have changed, not everything has changed. And we are certainly into that time of the school year where it's more likely you'll get a movie in class in the afternoon, or some of those other opportunities that are less academic than they might have been back in, say, March or November, for example. As we approach the end of another school year, it also means we are approaching report card time and a final evaluation of your daughter or son. How did they do at school this year? What will those grades look like? And how comparable are those grades today to when I was getting those grades in school? Is an A still an A? We're joined on the show to talk more about this by Kara Gordon-Solomon, an associate professor of philosophy at Queen's University. Kara, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you very much for making the time. I make reference to those grades of a bygone era and how comparable an A from my era is to an A today, because we've heard an awful lot about the inflation of grades, or gradeflation. How prevalent would you say gradeflation is, Kara?
Keeping in mind that I have a ground level point of view, not a bird's eye view on this, I would say it is extremely prevalent. That's probably less of an answer than you were hoping for.
Well, what makes you say it's extremely prevalent?
My impression is that students are coming in with the expectation that they're going to be getting, A-range grades, a lot of them. And I can only figure that they've got this expectation because that's what they're used to. So a round of grades that I gave out in one of my courses midway through the term in the fall, I gave out some grades that were like borderline B plus A minus, which at that point in the term was meant to say, you're doing very well, keep on improving. But I got a couple of really sort of fretful seeming emails from students saying, oh my gosh, I did so badly on that first assessment. Am I going to be okay? What am I doing wrong? And I sent a number of emails back saying, no, borderline A minus is good. And yes, you're doing well on these other components. And don't worry, you're going to be fine. But if an almost A minus is a cause for tears, not even as a final grade, but as a October grade, I just have to figure that their expectations are aligned with it's just going to be A's all the time.
Kara, I'll be honest. I was rather fortunate in school to receive pretty darn good grades, and it wasn't until post-secondary that I saw my first C on a midterm report. And let me tell you, I would have killed for a borderline A minus at that time.
I know the feeling.
So
I am also old.
This pressure that, you hear it from students who seem rather mortified that they're borderline A minus. This pressure that you as an associate professor feels, is it coming only from students or students' families?
I have not experienced it from students' families, thank goodness. And when it comes from students themselves, it's manageable, right? You can manage it with sort of being a mixture of soothing and firm. But it's also coming from our higher administration, and that is where the shoe pinches. That's where it gets very challenging for someone in my position.
Right, because you must feel enormous pressure then, especially if you're not a tenured professor.
Luckily, I am, and that helps enormously. That's a night and day difference. If one's not a tenure professor, it would be, I think, foolish, risky to the point of foolish, to be stubborn or try to hold one's line on grades. And a lot of professors aren't, right? There's a huge contingent of adjunct or sessional professors, and a smaller contingent of those who are on the tenure track but not yet tenured, whose jobs are comparatively vulnerable, whose continued employment requires sort of positive administrative signing off. But yeah, if you're tenured, there is more freedom, but there is not an absence of pressure. I've definitely been subjected to. Oh no, go ahead.
Well, what does that pressure look and or feel like? In
the most recent case, you've read the piece that I wrote in the Star, right? I think that should now be open access. So I talked about this there, which is why I'm bringing it up. But I had a student not that long ago who received an A- overall in a course they took with me, and an A- on the particular component of attendance and participation. And the student thought they ought to have earned an A or an A+ along that dimension. And they were able to present their case to an administrator who, again, as far as I can tell, because I do not know what happened in those conversations, but it seemed as though the administrator was persuaded by the student and took on the role of their champion or advocate. And I guess I would call it I like that better way to put it, a month-long email embroilment where there was just incessant pressure is the only way to describe it. Requests that were phrased like orders, even though they weren't quite orders. Not only to, adjust the student's grade upward, but to adjust everyone in the class's grade upward. Because the administrator was convinced. Again, I think probably based on their judgment that the particular student ought to have done better, that there was just something wrong with how I had graded attendance and participation. This is sounding completely bizarre. I don't mean to get into the weeds of this very strange experience.
Tenure notwithstanding, Kara, what is it that makes you stand with the resolve you have in holding the line on grades?
I mean, probably the shortest and most honest answer is that I have a real stubborn streak. A deeper answer is that, I mean, it sounds so funny to say that I think grades do matter, but grades are the only effective, or at least are the most effective means that we have of communicating with students the actual level of mastery that they've achieved in the subject matter. And in a sense, the distance between where they are and the level of work that they are doing and, the pinnacle of achievement in the domain. Because if you're just getting the A's and A pluses, any sort of commentary that you get, right, about feedback for improvement, it's going to be hard to take that really seriously, right? It's just going to sound like nitpicking, But if I'm already, getting the best grades a person can possibly get, if I've got the A+, right, the notes, I can just take them or leave them. And these subjects are really hard. And that's why some of us make our careers in them, right? Because they actually do reward those sorts of years of investment. And you need that many years of practice to get really, really good. So I guess I feel like if we're giving out top grades willy-nilly, we're just telling them that you're doing as well as a person can meaningfully do, right? You have more or less full mastery of philosophy. And that's just going to be good. That's just false information. And if you know perfectly well that you only sort of know what you're talking about as a student when you're writing an essay or speaking in class, and you're being told that your work is, or being given grades that signal that you cannot be doing, but that there is no better, the whole enterprise starts to look kind of like a joke. The business of education, I imagine, could start to feel very cynical. And that distresses me. Forgive me if I went on too long, but that does distress me. So that is the value-based reason for why I try to hold the line at least a little bit.
I share in that distress that you feel, Kara, not only because I'm admittedly old, as I've already described, but also I come from a family of academics, and I've seen the rigor with which they apply their work outside of the classroom to evaluate students, etc. And I wonder what implications beyond the classroom that you may fear are a result of this if we don't course correct on grade inflation.
Oh, like what are the implications for society at large?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. My first thought, which is, oh my gosh, that's above my pay grade. But I mean, one of the things that I think it connects to, right, is the very bad reputation that expertise has right now, right? The trope that you hear in culture of do your own research when it comes to, so help me, vaccinations and whatnot. And one of the things that makes me sad, right, is that if you are going through a degree, right, and majoring in a subject, there is a hope or an expectation, especially if you emerge with sterling grades on your transcript, that you will have something like subject matter expertise, right? And you'll have a sense from the inside, right, about of what it is to really know a subject, right? To have a sense of the lay of the land, a sense of the literature, a sense of the kinds of questions that are asked, how those questions are answered, how one thinks when one is practicing that subject. And I think when you've acquired that, you're much better positioned to recognize it and value it when you see it, even in domains that are removed from your own.
Kara, I appreciate you speaking out on this and making time for the show today. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope this is what you were looking for from me. I've never done this before.
You've done wonderfully and given us a lot to think about. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Kara Gordon-Solomon is an associate professor of philosophy at Queen's University. She wrote a very thought-provoking piece for The Star, as she alluded to, under the headline, How Good Grades Went from Achievement to Entitlement. And as you well know, not only am I a dinosaur when it comes to academics today, it's been a long time since I've been in a classroom, any classroom at any level. But I do come from a family of teachers, and I have heard from not only them, but from others in the profession still today about the difficulty associated with assigning a grade that is not an A. And in some cases, I've heard some teachers say it's not worth the hassle to assign anything less. I'll just give the grade that the school wants me to give and move these students right along. And if I can put it bluntly, if not in a somewhat vulgar fashion, if you are putting in a half-assed effort, but you get the full-ass mark, then we are resetting the bar to half-assed. And I don't know about you, but I'm that guy, much like the stubbornness that our guest, Kara Gordon-Solomon, says she has. I'm that guy that wants the bar to be full-ass all the time. Isn't that what we should want? Because as soon as we start lowering the bar, then we lower achievement. We're getting on that time of the year where your kids are going to be assigned their grades. Are they inflated? Is an A today still an A of yesterday? Always interested in your thoughts. On the Mike Farwell Show, this is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Grades are the only effective, or at least are the most effective means that we have of communicating with students the actual level of mastery that they've achieved in the subject matter. And in a sense, the distance between where they are and the level of work that they are doing and, the pinnacle of achievement in the domain.
Kara Gordon-Solomon is an associate professor of philosophy at Queen's University. She argues that good grades went from achievement to entitlement. What do you think? Is an A today still the same as an A from yesterday? Glenn is with us this morning. Farwell's Force, member number 363. Good morning, Glenn.
Hi, Mike. First, want to say, great job on the Rangers. You and Josh did a bang-up job. I listened to every game all season long, and you guys did a wonderful job. And welcome home, and good to hear your voice.
Thank you. It's good to be heard.
Yeah. That's all I got.
All right, Glenn. Well, thank you for that. Let's see if Farwell's Force, member number 165, Sean, has anything to say about grades today. Hi, Sean.
Hi. Yeah. I went to school in a time when they would actually fail you. And, we actually got percentages when I was in high school, not letters. I was in the public system, and like I said, we actually got percentages. When I was in post-secondary education, we did get a letter grade. And I think that post-secondary educations do themselves a disservice by pushing people through. They devalue their own degree programs. If it becomes known that a certain institution forces kids through, their degrees are looked down upon. Oh, there is one comment I would like to make about the professor. Worst vocal fry I've ever heard from an adult, quite frankly. Thank you.
Okay. I mean, I don't know that we need to be that critical. As our guest pointed out, it was the first time she had done something like this. It's not as easy, perhaps, for her as it is for you, Sean. But I think you raise an interesting point around the reflection on the institution of graduates who might not be meeting a standard in the workplace that their transcript suggests they would meet. And I remember not too long ago an analysis done about how difficult it remained to get into the University of Waterloo and how UW was catching some flack for that. I'm like, keep it up. We want the standard to remain high. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It turned into a marathon meeting last week of regional council. 7 hours discussing and deliberating our ongoing water woes. And despite appeals from the development community, we are only inching forward on progress towards reopening for development in this region. Michael Harris is a regional councillor who represents Kitchener, joins us on the show to talk more about it. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
You had tried last week at the meeting of regional council to advocate for a 10% capacity reserve as opposed to the 20% that we're using. Why did you try to do that?
Well, Mike, we've been in this water woe now for just over 6 months. And, unfortunately, we're thrust into, making some obviously important decisions on, maintaining the, not only the quality, but the volume of water we can produce here in the community while balancing the needs of also maintaining a strong economy for the region, knowing that, yes, we are somewhat still in a housing crisis. Our economy has had a downturn in, condominium and new home sales. But at the same time, we have projects that need to happen. And we put a complete standstill on those. And so we have to balance, getting our system back up and running while, moving our economy along because we've had, in essence, a freeze since December. And so I moved a motion that was actually supported by the majority of my colleagues to look at a hybrid of the 3 risk management scenarios that staff presented. And of course, they've done a tremendous job trying to, bring solutions and, to the problem that we've had. But again, we've got to balance that out with the needs of our economy too. I also added that the Provincial Land Facilitation Office obviously be requested to, review, investigate, and advise on the recommended resiliency number. And so I'm hopeful on the 17th of June that work will be fast-tracked and done for council to approve some sort of hybrid to, continue the work to get our system back up and running, but also open up development, knowing that some of these projects can take years and years to actually come online. But we've got to balance both and get our economy moving.
You talk about that economic impact, Michael, and the development community was pretty clear in its analysis. More than 1,000 jobs and tens of millions of dollars are at risk here. How concerned are you the longer this problem persists?
No, I'm very concerned. Look, we have not only a reputational liability, a problem on our hands, but, a financial liability and risk problem on our hands. We know that there are projects that are literally shovel ready that could go, important affordable housing projects. We know that there are many community benefit projects around the region, like, the KW Animal Shelter or Humane Society, rather. The list goes on and on of projects that are ready to go, and especially in a down economy, when some projects have been shelved because of the economics, there are projects that are able to proceed, and now they can't because of our water problems. So, we have to look at both sides. That's council's role ultimately. We'll take the work of the staff for sure into consideration, but we have to balance those two items. And if we don't get moving here soon, relatively quickly, we're going to have ourselves even a bigger problem on our hands.
You mentioned the work that staff is doing here regionally, and you also alluded to seeking support from the provincial body around land. How confident are you that we have the expertise here in the region to get this problem solved?
Well, look, again, to commend staff. We obviously had to make some changes early on to a situation that we found ourselves in. It's been some sleepless nights, Mike. I mean, this is something that I think all of us think about. We wish we weren't in this situation, but we are. Oftentimes I congratulate, where we're at as a region on the ability to treat water. In some communities, that's been their problem, frankly, for expansion. But that's not our problem here. It's a supply issue. And so whether we've not really kept up on, investing in the infrastructure that supports water supply, we're now faced with the situation at hand, and we have to, again, balance the expertise of our staff with the needs of our community. And I believe that working through some provincial partners and our local staff, we can get there. In fact, part of my motion was also to engage Ontario Clean Water, to conduct an independent peer review of the region's capital plan. We've asked the Land Development Office to engage with the regional staff on, that resiliency number so that we're listening from every stakeholder and expert to come to the best resolution. And I believe hopefully on the 17th of June, we've got to be able to, keep moving. And staff are always going to be on the cautious side, a more conservative approach. But, we have to also look at the economy as well. And I believe, council's in support of that, and we'll see where we go next meeting.
So just so we all understand this, we recognize that there is risk. We're kind of in a position of risk. That's why the freeze or the pause was put in place. What does your hybrid motion propose here, Michael? And what is the risk associated with that hybrid motion?
Well, staff have recommended about a 20% resiliency so that in case there was, catastrophic failure, a massive water main break, et cetera, that you'd have enough resiliency within the system to continue to keep up with the current demand that is expected within the Mannheim system. I'm suggesting that we look at a bit of a hybrid of the three risk management scenarios and bring it down to 10 to allow for a more expedited approach in allocation and allowing new projects to proceed. You look at the region's population over the last few years, it spiked 30,000 people a few years ago with their international student population, but then we know what happened there. A lot of them departed. We had a very minimal growth here in the region last year. And so I think added on top of, accelerated conservation measures, we can open up that capacity while preserving the system, but giving, the green light to projects that are shovel-ready, that have been approved to proceed, to begin sunning those Form 1s and get shovels in the ground, knowing that in some cases won't be now, but will be in maybe 1, 2, 3 years out, that we'll be ready, and we're going to continue to need to invest in our water infrastructure, including the treatment side of it, which we have done in terms of a temporary solution in terms of treating and the backup plans. Like we're throwing all kinds of resources at it, but we have to open up our economy. It just can't continue to be stopped, or we're going to have massive problems. And I believe everyone's hopefully rowing in the same direction to get us there. It's just a matter of maybe taking a little bit more risk on than perhaps some would like, but that's the situation we find ourselves in, and we have to do.
Michael, really appreciate the time you've made for the show. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks, Mike. Take care.
You too. Bye now. Michael Harris is a regional councillor who represents Kitchener. I think that last point is the most important one for us to absorb here, and that is the level of risk that we are willing to take on. And I say that as the royal we here publicly, right? We understand that the resiliency baked into our water system sits at 20%. While that does not necessarily make us unique, that is a very healthy, shall I say, buffer for resiliency in the event of something catastrophic. So could we think about it in these terms? At least this is one of the ways that it comes through my mind, and that is when you're talking about an investment strategy, right? And the longer term investment might be higher risk because you've got the time in your investment strategy to deal with the ebbs and the flows of the market. How risk tolerant are we when it comes to our precious groundwater supply? And are we willing to take on the risk of reducing by half that resiliency from a 20% buffer, if you will, to a 10% buffer? And I would suspect that we are being asked to live within that, or take on the risk of that 10% buffer in the short term. That short term being, right, if you're not having the 20% buffer, basically you've got 80% that you're working towards. All of a sudden you can work towards 90%. Will that free up some more development permits so that we can continue to do projects, especially the shovel-ready projects that Michael Harris alludes to, and still keep that 10% buffer? With the idea being, as we move forward and continue working on longer-term solutions, we are rebuilding that resiliency up to 20%. But in the meantime, between time, and I'm not going to even hazard a guess at how many years we would be asked to operate within that 10% resiliency, but if we could, are we willing to do that? And that seems to be the direction that Michael Harris is encouraging his fellow councillors to go. He got support from those councillors. Now staff is taking a look at this, and it will come back not this week, but next on the 17th. So that will be next Wednesday. Regional Council will again look at this issue and see if the 10% resiliency is a number that they can live with. Over and above that resiliency, we have to remember the situation that we find ourselves in, period. And I do find two things rather curious right now. One is that we have heard very little, if anything, in the way of conservation efforts being required or even requested on our part. I always go back to what was happening in Calgary, and I know this is different than the massive water main rupture that they had in Calgary, but they were talking about 3-minute showers and all sorts of other things, which is for me, in the modern world, in North America, that's a pretty big, hairy deal to have your municipality come to you and say, you need to do this to conserve water, you need to do that to conserve water, and by the way, on top of all of it, take a 3-minute shower, would you? Like, those are pretty strict guidelines for conservation, but that's the dire situation that Calgary found itself in. I recognize we're not there, but nothing yet really in the way of reducing our consumption of water. I find that very curious. And one of the other things that I find curious is the pause on development. Look, even if you sign off on a permit for a shovel-ready project and they put that shovel in the ground tomorrow, it's not as though the development goes up overnight. So you've got, 36 months before the development is complete? And I'm not sure why we are unable to look that far down the road to say, by the time this project comes online, we will have built this much more capacity into our system. That's a little bit of a speed bump for me that I can't quite wrap my head around, but I'll be paying very close attention to that meeting next Wednesday at Regional Council. And one of the things we should add to this, I think anyway, is on the bright side here for folks in Wilmot Township, particularly those who have dug wells as opposed to drilled. But we have heard the stories, and they're rather alarming, about the water capacity issues for individual residents in Wilmot Township. And now, of course, the region has voted to continue taking that extra water from Wilmot that it had been taking despite going against a long-standing policy, but we'd been taking it for years anyway. We are going to continue taking it. But Regional Council did pass, thanks to a motion brought forward by Wilmot Mayor Natasha Salonen, the policy that if there are negative impacts to private wells in Wilmot Township, the region will act immediately to provide support to those homeowners. It can be done for the tens of thousands of dollars. And I know while that can be significant money to us as individuals, it's chump change to a municipal government. So they can just get those emergency measures in place for any individual property owner in Wilmot who is negatively impacted by the increased water that is being drawn from Wilmot. Who knew that Wilmot Township would be providing the water that saves the rest of the region right now as we work our way through this crisis? And we'll find out next week if the motion brought forward by Councillor Michael Harris will pass mustard when they review this at the staff level at the region. Can we get by with a 10% resiliency buffer as opposed to 20? And, how would you feel about lowering that resiliency? It's challenging times here in the region of Waterloo. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is a Monday morning, so happy Monday to those who celebrate. Mondays mean a couple of regular things, including at 11 o'clock, so about 45 minutes from now, just after the 11 a.m. news, Brian Allison, our good friend and musicologist, will be here with This Week in Music History, followed by David Drewe and Drew's Views at 11:30. It's been a while since David has been here. He's very excited to be back, and I think he's going to stick around and take calls with us during Rant or Rave today as well. So more David Drewe than you expected on your Monday, coming up just over an hour from now. And just after the 10:30 news, about 10 minutes from now, Canada's Poverty Report Card shows that many of us are still dealing with food insecurity and affordability issues. All of that's still to come. But at this time of the day, we take a moment to remind you of this.
Not everyone's a jackwagon. Not every heart is cold. Not every promise made to you is gonna turn to gold and fold. Some people mean it when they say they care. Some folks will show up, actually be there. So don't close the door on every soul you meet. Not everyone's a jackwagon on this street.
I had the privilege all weekend long of being surrounded by people who are decidedly not jackwagons. I know sometimes we get frustrated with our neighbors while they drive their cars in a fashion that really grinds our gears, chafes our chaps, some might say. And there's lots of reasons, it seems, some days to be upset and or frustrated with the jackwagons around us. But I had one of those weekends. I know I'm making it all about me. I'm sorry about that. But really, it's all about you because I got to hang out with so many of you. And a special thanks goes out today to Peter at the Aging Oak, Barbara, the sewer lady, Ed and Becky at the Cereal Grill Kitchen in Baden, and Tim, Libby, and the entire Barry family and staff, along with Brad and Christine from the Schmuck Truck, the Barrys at Barry's Asparagus, all of those places, the Aging Oak, the Cereal Griller Kitchen, Barry's Asparagus, all through the weekend, we spent our time fundraising for cystic fibrosis research, and you came out in huge numbers and you demonstrated your huge heart. I mean, it started with the folks at the Aging Oak and the Cereal Griller and Barry's Asparagus giving us the places to gather and enjoy some good food and camaraderie and then make those donations. But you came with the donations, a generous heart and an open wallet, and you helped us raise thousands and thousands of dollars for cystic fibrosis research, which means that you were more than willing to step up and contribute to a better life for other people in our community who are dealing with something that they were just simply born with. So you just filled our hearts, not to mention our Farwell for Hire fund over the weekend. And we are very grateful for the reminder that not everyone, especially in this community, is a jackwagon. So thank you very much for that. An update from the 570 News Center. And then let's look into that poverty report card here in Canada through the lens of our food bank of Waterloo Region. That is next on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, Food Banks Canada has released its 2026 poverty report card, and there are some positive signs in there and some less than positive signs in there. But the best way to get into the details is to call on a friend. So that's what we're doing on the show this morning as we welcome Kim Wilhelm to the program. As you know, Kim is the CEO at the Food Bank of Waterloo Region. Kim, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing really well, thank you. How are you?
Equally well, thank you.
Good. Glad to hear that. So on the poverty report card issued by Food Banks Canada, we are seeing some progress in reducing poverty in this country. However, the report also does highlight that far too many people across the country continue to struggle with food insecurity and affordability. From your perspective, what are the main takeaways from the poverty report card?
Mike, I would say the biggest takeaway is that progress is possible, but it's fragile. And Canada's overall grade improved very slightly from a D to a D+, thanks to the measures like the new groceries and essentials benefit and the enhancements to the Canada's Child Benefit. But the report also shows that 1 in 4 people in Canada still experiences food insecurity, which is why the country's food insecurity grade remains at an F. And together with Food Banks Canada, we're calling on all levels of government to build on progress that we've seen by modernizing the employment insurance, strengthening social assistance programs, and addressing the affordability challenges that continue to push people into poverty.
So you mentioned that grocery and essentials benefit, Kim, and of course that began to land in folks' bank accounts last week. The government also earlier this year reduced gas taxes. Can we really afford to do more in this economy?
I think the question, Mike, is whether we can afford not to. Programs like the grocery and essentials benefit, expanded dental care, and improvements to the Canada Child Benefit are making a difference for so many households right now. And that's reflected in Canada's slight improvement that we saw in the poverty report card. But 1 in 4 people, as I mentioned, are experiencing food insecurity, and the need remains incredibly high. We can't afford to lose the progress that's been made, and continued investment in income supports and poverty reduction measures is truthfully essential if we want fewer people relying on food assistance programs in the future.
Do we know why our food insecurity score remained as an F?
Yeah, because food insecurity remains widespread. Here in Waterloo Region, it's 1 in 9 people, which is not quite as high as the national average. And while we've seen some positive policy changes, they haven't yet kept pace with the growing affordability pressures that people are facing. You mentioned the rising cost in gas. We've got high grocery prices, unstable employment, and inadequate income supports. And until those underlying issues are addressed, food insecurity will continue to affect millions of Canadians, including people who call Waterloo Region home.
We know, Kim, that food insecurity can impact anyone, but who is it that is being impacted the most?
Yeah, some groups do continue to be disproportionately affected. So children make up about 1/3 of food assistance participants, despite representing only 1/5 of the population. Here in Waterloo Region, that's about 26,000 kids are living in food insecure households. Single-parent households are also facing significantly higher rates of food insecurity. So do many racialized communities. Young people are another growing concern nationally. Youth unemployment is almost 15%. In Waterloo Region, that number jumped to almost 19% this year, which means many young people between the ages of 15 and 24 are really struggling to find stable work.
So we know this report card, or this series of report cards from Food Banks Canada, looks at the entire country. Let's drill in on Ontario here. How did this province perform, and what can the provincial government do to improve its grade?
Mm-hmm. What stands out is the growing gap between the cost of living and the support available to people who need it most. Social assistance isn't keeping pace with the rising costs. Rents continue to increase, and homelessness is becoming more and more common. These aren't isolated issues, but they're connected, Mike. And when people can't afford housing or basic necessities, they often have less money available for food, which is then contributing to higher rates of food insecurity and increased demand for food assistance programs. We need real policy change in order to shift the needle.
What does this look like here in the region of Waterloo?
Here in Waterloo Region, the need continues at the highest levels that we've ever seen. In April of this year, nearly 27,000 people accessed a food hamper program. That was a record-breaking number for us. And honestly, Mike, I thought I was done talking about record-breaking numbers. That resulted in more than 60,000 visits across our food network here locally. 205% increase since 2019. That tells us that this is no longer a temporary challenge. It's a growing affordability crisis that is affecting thousands and thousands of people here in Waterloo Region and across the country.
We hear an awful lot, Kim, about the cost of groceries these days, right? And the sticker shock that we get and the choices that we're trying to make when we go to the grocery store. Is food insecurity really just about those food prices, or is there more to it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Food prices are certainly part of the conversation, but food insecurity is about much more than groceries alone. Households are trying to balance housing costs, transportation, utilities, childcare, along with other essentials alongside the food. So the rising costs in all of these areas are contributing to financial strain. That's why the recommendations that we have from Feed Ontario and Food Banks Canada are putting forward focus on strengthening our income supports and reducing poverty. And when people have enough income to balance their basic needs, they're better able to afford food and other basic necessities.
What do you say to people who argue that the food banks are not a solution to these problems?
We completely agree. Food banks were never intended to be the solution to poverty or food insecurity. They were prevented to provide immediate support if and when people need it. That's why we must continue to advocate for public policies that reduce poverty, strengthen incomes, and improve affordability. We need both short-term support and long-term solutions if we really want to see fewer people needing food assistance.
When it comes to that support, Kim, importantly, what can we here in the region, what can we do to help?
Well, there's two important ways that we're asking people to help right now. First, support local food programs, local food banks, the Food Bank of Waterloo Region and the Cambridge Food Bank through donations of food, funds, or time. Second, let elected officials know that rising poverty and food insecurity aren't acceptable. Public policy really plays a significant role in reducing food insecurity, and lasting change requires action from all levels of government.
Okay, before I let you go today, Kim, I just want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier, and that was the more than 26,000 kids in Waterloo Region who are living in food insecure households. What is the Food Bank of Waterloo Region doing this summer to address that need?
Well, summer can especially be challenging for families who are experiencing food insecurity. During the school year, many children have access to nutrition programs at school, but these supports don't operate the same way when classes end. And that's why, once again, we are running our Full Bellies Happy Hearts campaign, which is a campaign focused on helping ensure that children and families have access to nutritious food all year round. And community support through financial donations helps us ensure that those kids continue to eat. And we are so fortunate this year to have Alan Bush of the Alan Bush investment team, who has stepped up to match donations once again to our Full Bellies Happy Hearts campaign.
I love it. And I love the work that you all do. Kim, thank you very much for being here. And to you and the entire team, keep up the great work.
Thanks, Mike.
Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Kim Wilhelm is the CEO of the Food Bank of Waterloo Region. We do see a slight reduction overall in poverty in the latest Food Banks Canada report cards, but affordability, food insecurity remain challenges for a lot of us in this province, in this country, in this region. Just think, more than 26,000 kids in this community living in food insecure households. And I got to tell you, in the household that I grew up in, 5 kids, 5 hungry mouths to feed, and we never went wanting in that department. It's a tough thing to wrap one's head around. And I loved Kim's point about those who would argue that food banks are not the solution. We would agree entirely, she says. And I've mentioned this before. I think it's worth mentioning again. I've heard you say specific to food banks that they were always meant to be a temporary measure. Understood, agreed. But more than anything else, because they are not clearly a temporary measure, and this is what I have said on many occasions in the past, the nonprofit and charitable sector is what I like to refer to as Canada's dirty little secret. We do believe, we do, I'm going to generalize this, each and every one of us believes that we should look out for one another in this community, in this country, that collectively we will come together and provide for those who are, for whatever reason, unable to provide for themselves. And our governments allow folks like Kim Wilhelm and the food banks and, our houses of friendship and you name the various social agencies. Our governments allow them to do the heavy lifting on the ground through, yes, some granting that gets done, but also grassroots fundraising as opposed to funding it through the government. The network of nonprofits and charitable agencies across this country are the dirty little secret that our governments use to really not do the work themselves. And I'm not saying these organizations are bad by any stretch, but the idea was that we would collectively, through our taxes, fund all of these programs. It's not the way that it works. It's not the way that it works at all. Kind of frustrates me. Ian is with us on the phone. Good morning, Ian.
Hey, Mike. For the last few years, I've done a Christmas concert, and it's all meant to go to the food bank. And last Christmas, we did over $1,500, which was awesome. But, when we don't have to do those concerts anymore, that'll be a great day. But, remember the guaranteed income aspect that we had talked about? In fact, Hamilton had done a pilot of it, and it really showed people who were able to get $2,000 a month didn't have to worry about their rent or food, etc. They actually became very prosperous in terms of going out, getting work, or educating themselves for future work that much better. Considering how rich Canada is in so many respects, I really think we need to kind of go back to looking at that to help these people. Like, it's disturbing when I hear about the amount of children that are in food insecure homes, and you're not helping them. I also might want to remind you, I remember when you took a week and you lived off, I can't remember, was it around $600 or so for the week? And I remember you saying by the third or fourth day, just eating some cereal and not having enough money to necessarily get the nutrition you need, how much it impacted you in terms of getting out there to make your life better. So I think when it comes down to it, we need to actually look at some of the higher ups and these food companies especially as well that are profiting in the billions of dollars and somehow bring that back down to help the people who really need this. And, I've also mentioned to you as well, why do we need to brand milk, eggs, bread, etc., the staples? Stop with this marketing and branding. It's food. It's so simple. Let's make it simple. Let's feed everyone the best we can, and we're going to have a prosperous society with something like this instead of worrying about 1 in 4 families not getting properly fed. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Ian. Appreciate the call. You remember mostly correctly. I don't remember what the overall monthly amount was for somebody living on disability support. Maybe that was the 600. But what was left over, and the experiment I was invited to take part in, what was left over was $20. That's how much somebody living on Ontario Support had left over to spend on food, $20 a week. So I tried to live off of $20 for my week's food. And yes, a couple to a few days in, I was constantly consumed by thoughts of food and when I would eat again and how much I would have to eat and all of the implications that came along with that beyond just being hungry. So good memory by you, Ian. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We're getting close to This Week in Music History. So I thought I'd have a little bit of fun with you today because I came across this little note this morning. It was on this day back in 2008, so 18 years ago, that Rolling Stone magazine published a list of the top 50 guitar songs of all time. The top 50 of all time. Number 5 on that list was this one. I have no doubt that you recognize right away a little bit of Brown Sugar. That was 5, number 5 on Rolling Stone magazine's top 50 guitar songs of all time. Do you think you can guess any of the other top 4 guitar songs of all time? Brown Sugar was number 5. What were numbers 4, 3, 2, and 1? Take your best shot. We'll share the answer coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It was 18 years ago, this June the 8th, that Rolling Stone magazine released its list of the top 50 guitar songs of all time. The 5th best guitar song ever, according to Rolling Stone magazine, was... I think we can understand why. Brown Sugar has got a great riff to open the song. What might any of the other top 4 guitar songs of all time be? You want to take a guess at it? 519-570-2545. Star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Mark, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
I knew you'd call about a music question.
I love music. You know that.
I do. And it was great to see you yesterday. Thanks for coming out to Barry's Asparagus for some deep fried asparagus, buddy.
My pleasure, Mike. And the asparagus was fantastic as usual.
Glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. So, do you think you know any of the other top 4 guitar songs of all time, according to Rolling Stone magazine?
How about Layla?
Layla. Good guess. Not one of the answers we're looking for, Mark. But I'll tell you what is at number 3, because you're in the same genre, right? Layla was Derek and the Dominoes with Eric Clapton. Number 3 on the list of top 50 guitar songs of all time was this one. And that, of course, would be a little bit of Crossroads by Cream, also Eric Clapton. Derek and the Dominoes, Eric Clapton, the Yardbirds, Eric Clapton, Eric Clapton, Eric Clapton. Yeah, that was at number 3. So we've still got 3 to go in the top 5. I wonder if Lisa knows one. Good morning, Lisa.
Hey, Mike. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm okay. You've had a busy few weeks. Are you calming down a little bit, or is it just getting busier and busier with Farwell for hire?
Yeah, you know what? We're going to Farwell for hire our tails off this month, and that's okay with me. These are all good ways or good reasons to be busy.
It definitely keeps you out of trouble.
It sure does.
I honestly, I would assume Stairway to Heaven would be on there.
Oh, another good guess, Lisa, but Stairway to Heaven doesn't make it on there. However... yeah, the Kinks make it on there with You Really Got Me. So the top 50 guitar songs of all time, according to Rolling Stone magazine. At number 5, Brown Sugar. At number 4, You Really Got Me. At number 3, Crossroads. At number 2, how about some Hendrix? A little bit of Purple Haze, but what is the number one guitar song of all time, according to Rolling Stone magazine? Preston Paul, take a crack at it, buddy. Best guitar song of all time.
Good morning, Mike. I gotta say Money by Pink Floyd.
Oh, Money by Pink Floyd. I love your guesses, but we're going way back, even further than that. How about some Chuck Berry? Johnny Be Good, according to Rolling Stone magazine, the number one guitar song of all time. This week in music history, coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. One of those albums that just smacks you right in the face. That's how good it is. I will always remember the first time I played that album from the Rolling Stones, which includes the single Tumbling Dice, which you just heard. Do you know the album? I'll let you think on it for just a minute, but I have a feeling that you do. And look at this. The Rolling Stones come up twice in about 10 minutes here on the show because Brown Sugar, the fifth best guitar song of all time, according to Rolling Stone magazine. Johnny Be Good, Chuck Berry, number one. We played that little game just before 11, and I can't help but wonder if our good friend and musicologist Brian Allison was listening and playing along at home. The top 50 guitar songs of all time released on this day back in 2008 by Rolling Stone magazine. Brian joins us Monday mornings at 11 on the show. And don't forget, while you can hear Brian right here on the show, you can also get these tidbits that we're going to discuss and more on his Facebook page of the same name this week in music history as Brian joins us on the program. Good morning, Brian.
Hey, stranger. How you doing?
I know it has been a minute, hasn't it? I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm good. I missed you while you were away, but glad you were there for that amazing celebration in Kelowna.
It was a lot of fun. I'm so happy for the team. I might be down to cloud 5 or 6 by now, but not quite all the way back to the ground. And were you by chance playing along at home when we were going over the best guitar songs of all time a moment ago?
No, but I'm familiar with the article. I read it earlier in the week, so I was hip to that.
Of course you were. You're hip to all things music as we begin our look down this week in music history, Brian. And if we go back to 1964 on This Week in Music History, who are these Fab Three that you speak of?
It's such a great story. So, I mean, when we go back to June 1964, we're really entering the peak of Beatlemania. You know, this is when the entire globe was just completely smitten with the Fab Four. And the Beatles had agreed to tour the world. They were doing all kinds of shows around the world. And in the middle of this, poor drummer Ringo ends up with tonsillitis and needs to take some time off. And they've got gigs booked. They can't cancel. So what do? They bring in another guy to play drums for the Beatles on with probably the biggest part of their tour. They were going to Australia, and they were really one of the first bands that went to Australia and toured down under, since it's, you know, such a far plane ride. So this is a big deal. So Jimmy Nichols becomes the fifth Beatle, really, from these dates that the Beatles had to do, and it was incredible. They went to Australia, and they played their standard abbreviated set, which had at that time been whittled down to about 10 songs. And, you know, they played a quick set. When you went to see the Beatles in 64, you didn't get a 2-hour show. You got about 45 to 50 minutes if you were lucky, and that was the extent of it. So Jimmy Nichols, standing in for Ringo, And just, what an incredible experience. Got to play with the Fab Four at the time when they were the biggest. And that was kind of it for Jimmy Nichols. He didn't really return to the spotlight at all. He stepped away from fame for that brief bit of fame that he had in his life and didn't really return to it. And even when the Beatles would sort of do, like they did the anthology series in 1995, which was, about a 14-hour documentary about the Beatles right from the beginning. And Jimmy Nichols was asked to participate, to speak of his brief time with them in 1964, and he declined. He was not interested in revisiting and was valuing his anonymity at that point. But boy, he had a couple of moments there where he was in probably the most important drum seat in the world.
Imagine being a part of something so big and never really speaking of it again. That's wild to me.
Yeah, there were periods of his life, maybe I'm going to say in the late 70s, early 80s, where Jimmy Nichols was a little bit more accessible. And, he talked about the experience, but not to a great degree. But then probably by the mid-80s, he had sort of decided, I don't want to be the guy that's only known for sitting in for Ringo for 10 shows or whatever it was. And I think it was only 8 shows, actually. And he just kind of said, I'm sort of done talking about this. I've said all there is to say. It was a great experience. The guys treated me well, and, that was it for me. So he was done.
You know what? Fair enough. Fair enough all around. Okay, let's not keep folks waiting any longer. I'm sure they could put together the single Tumbling Dice and the album that it came from, which went number 1 this week in 1972.
It sure did. The Rolling Stones double album, their first double album, Exile on Main Street.
So good.
Number 1. Yep, went to number 1 in the UK charts, and it would eventually end up number 1 in the USA as well. Just a classic record. It would go on to sell many, many copies, and the story behind it. I mean, there's literally been several books written about the recording of Exile on Main Street. So basically, the Stones had decided they needed to get out of England because they had this huge tax burden. So they moved to the south of France. Keith Richards rented a villa and hosted these recording sessions in the dank basement of this villa. And it was marred by all kinds of events, constant visitors, which included drug dealers to supply the band. Keith was deep into heroin at that point, so the sessions were marred with that sort of thing as well. But, I mean, everything came out okay, some amazing recordings from that time. And then if you fast forward to 2010, the re-released album entered the UK charts at number 1, almost 38 years after the week that it first occupied that position. So the Stones became the first act to have a studio album return to number 1 after it was first released, which was a pretty incredible record. But, I mean, what an album. I can still spin Exile on Main Street, all 4 sides, front to back, and think, wow, this is a great record.
Yeah, I really do vividly recall the first time I popped in the CD. It wasn't vinyl for me, but and the impression it left on me. Just a fantastic album.
Yeah, you can almost feel the mood of, what was happening in the south of France as they were recording that record. And if you get a chance to read some of the literature that's been done on it, really interesting read, lots of stuff going on.
Later that same decade, from 72 to 1977, this week in music history, Brian, and the Sex Pistols, I mean, the public pressure mounted, and Queen Elizabeth II was celebrating her silver jubilee.
Well, and what do you do when you have the number 1 hit in the UK, but your record has been banned, and you can't tour anywhere because promoters are pulling out and saying they're not going to support the band to see them live. So you can't see them live. You can't hear them on the radio. Most record stores stopped carrying the record or put it in the back because they were shamed into doing that. So what do you do? So Malcolm McLaren, the Pistols manager, had this great idea. He said, we could rent a boat and we could put the band on the boat and float down the River Thames and play a live set. And that's specifically what they did on June 7th, 1977. They hired a vessel, which was aptly called the Queen Elizabeth, invited friends, journalists, and a film crew along for the ride, and they coasted along the River Thames and played. And once they got close to the Parliament buildings, they fired up the amps to 11 and performed a set right in front of the buildings there. So, it all seemed very successful and a good idea until they docked, and they were met by the police. And, of course, Malcolm McLaren spent the night in jail. Several other members of the entourage were physically assaulted by police officers who were wielding billy clubs. And as predicted, though, it made the evening news, and it further cemented the legend of the band as rock and roll outcasts. So this is a big deal. This is a big, big promotional moment for the Pistols.
You got to love it in 1977. You do what you can, right? And what a way to, I love, as you say, cement your status as rock and roll outcasts.
Well, and it was just, this was England in that moment in 77. You've got the Queen celebrating her silver jubilee, and the youth of the UK basically saying, look, this is glorified welfare. You're rich based on taxpayer dollars, and we have nothing. We have no jobs. We have no income. There's very little opportunity. Class warfare is running rampant in the streets, and people weren't happy about it specifically. They didn't feel like celebrating the Queen, and I think the Pistols gave them sort of that voice to say, yeah, this isn't really fair. We don't like this much.
Brian Allison is a musicologist who joins us every Monday morning just after the 11 a.m. news for a look back at this week in music history. Don't forget, he's got a Facebook page of the same name, This Week in Music History. Follow along there for these stories and more. We're going to stay in the same year, 1977, and talk about a band that was second only to the Jackson 5 in doing this thing back in the late 70s, and why you should never mess with Left Eye Lopez. Those stories and more coming up as we continue This Week in Music History with Brian Allison on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. On Monday mornings at this time, we are joined by our good friend and musicologist, Brian Allison, who takes us on a trip down a musical memory lane with This Week in Music History. You can find Brian's Facebook page of the same name, This Week in Music History. And we talked about the Sex Pistols in 1977, Brian. How about KC and the Sunshine Band this week in 1977? Doing something pretty special.
Pretty huge band that probably don't get as much credit as they deserve for, their body of work from the 1970s. But yeah, June 11th, 1977, with their single, I'm Your Boogeyman, Casey and the Sunshine Band became the second group in Billboard chart history, following only the great Jackson 5, score 4 U.S. number one hits. So they had Get Down Tonight in 75, Shake, Shake, Shake Your Booty, which was 76, Keep It Comin' Love in 1977, and I'm Your Boogeyman then in 1977 again. So, and then they would chart another hit in 1979 with Please Don't Go. So pretty incredible string of hits for Casey and the Sunshine Band. Some interesting trivia. Harry Wayne Casey formed this band, Casey and the Sunshine Band, while he was sweeping floors at TK Records in Miami, Florida. So Casey was working at this record store. They had a small recording studio out the back, and he started to develop some sounds with a songwriter friend of his, and they took their name from his nickname, which was Casey, and Florida's nickname, which was the Sunshine State, and became Casey and the Sunshine Band. And they would go on to sell 100 million records worldwide. So no small feat there for Casey and the Sunshine Band, and they topped it up in 1977.
You are probably right. Don't get the credit they deserve. I admit it's not my favorite genre, so I steer clear. But when you listed off those big hits, Keep It Comin' Love is the only one that I don't think I could hum off the top of my head. The other four I certainly can, so there you go.
You'd probably know it if you heard it.
I bet you I would.
All those songs had so much radio play back in the 70s, everybody sort of knew them.
It was on this very day back in 1991, Brian, that Color Me Bad, I don't know, do we call them one-hit wonders if it was their only number one?
I kind of think of Color Me Bad as one-hit wonders, yeah. They only scored one number one single. They did have a couple of other songs that charted, but this was their only real hit. So, yeah, I Want to Sex You Up hit the charts at number one, and that was an incredible record. And, it was it was a number 2 hit in the USA, with many radio stations who weren't really willing to say the word sex on the radio yet. So they would edit it out, and instead of I Want to Sex You Up, the song was titled I Want to Love You Up. So a little editing, even going back to 1991. I thought that was interesting. Some cool trivia. What, Mike, do you figure was the first song to ever chart with the word sex in the title, S-E-X?
Well, now that we're talking about 91 and they were still editing there, I'm only thinking of going back to the 80s with George Michael and I Want Your Sex. Or was it Do You Think I'm Sexy? Those are the two that come to mind.
Yeah, it was actually our friend James Brown way back in 1970 that charted the first song that factually had the word sex in the title. Now, the title of the song was Get Up, but in brackets, the title of Get Up was Get Up, quote, I Feel Like Being a Sex Machine. That was the actual title of the song. So that was the song that charted in 1970. First time that the dreaded word S-E-X was allowed into the charts.
Interesting. Okay, it was this week in 1992, and I'm just going to say it, Brian. Billy Ray Cyrus gave us the song We Never Needed.
Well, I tend to agree with you.
Okay, good.
It's one of those songs where you go, oh, God, if I never have to hear this song again, I think I'd be okay with that. But yeah, June 13th, 1992, Billy Ray Cyrus's debut album, Some Gave All, began a record-breaking 17-week run at the top of the U.S. album chart. 17 weeks, that's a really good stretch to stay in the number 1 position. And, of course, the breakout hit was The Achy Breaky Heart. So this song was just everywhere. Videos on MTV. Every radio station was playing it. He pretty much invented, with the composition of that song, the line dancing craze that took hold in the 90s as well, because everybody was line dancing to Achy Breaky Heart. So, yeah, that was a pretty big moment for Billy Ray Cyrus, one that he never, ever equaled. Although he would, have other hits for sure, a total of 8 top 10 singles in the Billboard Hot Country chart. He moved on to other things and moved on to an acting career, still recording to this day. But wow, I mean, Achy Breaky Heart, you just couldn't get away from it in 1992, could you?
You couldn't. You nailed it, because that was the time I was at UW. My summers were spent landscaping, so I was in a truck a lot of the day. And I heard that song over and over and over again the summer of 92. And let me tell you, every time it came on the radio, I went to another station. I was that guy.
I think I probably was too. The first couple of times, you listen through it because it's a novelty song at the time, and you think, okay, people are really digging this. But then, the third and fourth time, I'm kind of like, yeah, I think I'm good now. I got it. Don't think I need to hear it again.
Exactly. Okay, one more before I let you go. This week in 1994, Do Not Mess with Left Eye.
Oh, my goodness. This was quite the event. I remember when this happened. So Lisa Left Eye Lopez from the group TLC, she was staying with her boyfriend, who was NFL star Andre Bad Moon Rison. Love that nickname. And they got into a heated argument at Andre's home, and Lisa got upset. So she took a bunch of his prized athletic sneakers, threw them in the bathtub, doused them with lighter fluid, and set a match to them, thinking, this will show him. Unfortunately, the fire quickly spread to the rest of the $2 million home and burned it to the ground. It was completely totaled. So Lisa was charged with first-degree arson and fined $10,000 and given a 5-year probation order. Interestingly, despite the fire and having his home and all of his belongings destroyed, Lopez and Rison, they reconciled and they remained friends up until the time Lopez died suddenly in a car crash and tragically in 2002. But yep, she was burning it to the ground back in 1994.
Well, as they say, keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
A woman scorned.
That too. Brian, keep up the great work. It's always good to chat with you.
Great talking to you too, Mike.
Brian Allison is a musicologist who joins us every Monday morning just after the 11 a.m. news for a look at this week in music history. Do not forget his Facebook page of the same name, This Week in Music History, and you can get these stories and more right there on Facebook, This Week in Music History, online and on our show every Monday morning just after the 11 a.m. news. since we're talking about music, why don't we add this to the conversation? This Friday is not All Request Friday. This Friday is going to be All Request Pride Day. You see what we did there? In honor of the censorship of Cambridge Mayor Jan Leggett and censoring a young person who was giving a speech at the Pride flag raising at Cambridge City Hall, we are going to demonstrate that this is a show for all. It's an all-inclusive, all-request Pride Day this Friday on the show. Send us your requests that represent pride. So more than anything, what I'm looking for is your favorite musical artist who is part of the 2S LGBTQ plus community. That's your all-request Pride Day theme for this week. Email your requests to mike@570news.com or give Jen a call. She's on the other side of the glass, and she'll take down your request for All Request Pride Day this week. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Well, lonely Bobby never got a headline with his picture on, and no one ever came to him to hear his wisdom pour away. Like a punctured barrel leaking out for all the world, and if you're ever near enough, you'll sometimes hear him say, I'm the patron saint of these establishments of under space. Here beside the banister, I'm in the mom is always paid. I could fix the world if only let it let me grace. Instead, I'll slip away and keep my place. Well, all the owners through the city knew him well and let him in, and soon became a point of pride to harbor Bobby for the night. He never drank on credit, no one knew how poor he was, but he didn't buy for free when he put up a fight. I'm the patron saint of these establishments. I know a place deep within my troubled mind. I've answered all your questions asked. I can fix myself if it was worth the bother, but regret has disappeared at last.
That is a fellow by the name of Matt Osborne with a song called Lonely Bobby. It's not our usual introduction to David, not Bobby, Drewe, but it serves as our introduction for Drew's Views with David Drewe today.
The late Matt Osborne.
The late Matt Osborne.
It's been about 2 decades now, I'm guessing, since he passed. He was, as you could just hear, an outstanding talent. That was him a cappella using his guitar for percussion. His guitar playing ability was phenomenal, as you could hear in his voice there. He had a multiple octave range. And he hosted so many open stages around this place, and it was such an influence to so many people who were like, do I want to play? And Matt would just see that look on your face, and you'd be up on stage playing before you knew it, and he'd be playing with you, and it didn't matter how much you sucked if you were David Drewe. He made you sound good and have fun and feel confident, and he was one of those MCs where the crowd understood what he was doing and was buying into the idea. So no matter how bad you sucked, David Drewe, when you got up on that stage, the crowd was like applauding. And that is so cool for somebody who sucks and is doing this for the first time. He was a real nurturer of talent. And through this long circumstance of events, there's a beautiful portrait of him that I ended up with. And it turns out a mutual friend of ours, apparently. I don't know this person, but you're friends with him on Facebook, Dwight Storing.
Oh, yes, I know Dwight quite well.
Dwight is doing a documentary.
Of course he is. Who better?
On Matt Osborne.
Okay.
So this was last Thursday. Dwight came by my place. I didn't ask him, how's it going? I didn't ask him, when's it coming out? So have you talked to Bill from Kickoff? And he's like, no, but I'm trying to get a hold of this guy named Bob. And Bob might be a familiar name to you, Mike, because he was the one I was suggesting to guest host for me when I was having the personal time issues with my mom. So I was able to make that connection. And all of a sudden, I was thinking, I am really excited. And I've been listening to so much Matt Osborne over the weekend ever since. So I am putting a bug in your ear that at some point I'm going to be poking you to have Dwight on himself to talk about this documentary when he's ready. And he did not know I was going to bring this up, so he might not appreciate this.
Dwight has been on before. He's got an open invitation because he is a terrific storyteller. I'm trying off the top of my head to remember which documentary or which story he was telling when last he was on, because it is several years. But either way, Dwight is always welcome on this station. And just so I can emphasize and be sure of a point that I think you were making a moment ago.
I suck?
At guitar?
I did.
Okay.
I suck much less now.
Good.
I'm not a virtuoso, but I am not embarrassing at all.
This is my daily goal, David, to suck less than I did the day before.
Yes.
Right?
I want my mediocrity to shine.
Thank you. I set the bar right at mediocrity every morning when my alarm goes off, and damn it if I don't try to reach it.
And sometimes I make it.
Those are good days when you make it to mediocrity. Okay, you know this voice, you know this person. David is here every Monday morning at 11:30 to share Drewe's views. You know him as the former Conservative Party staffer that he is, the man who owns and operates negotiating change for government relations and stakeholder engagement strategies. But we've been like two ships passing in the night for almost a month now. But just to let you know, like what happens here on the show kind of, sort of happens in real life between David and I. We've got a real life relationship that goes back decades. And we were texting across the country. I'm in British Columbia for the Memorial Cup. You're here.
It started just before you left.
That's right.
Because something about Alberta cheesed me off.
Yes.
And I was like, when can I get on to talk about this?
And my text back was, I'm just about to leave for Kelowna.
Yeah.
But we will put a pin in it. So what we started going back and forth about was the deferential nature of Canadians. And my take on this, and you want to correct me, and I'm here for it, but my take on this is we are deferential because we are very busy people, David. We're just going about our daily lives to put the roast beef and mashed potatoes on the table. And we have deferred and long deferred to those we have elected, trusting them to lead. Hence our deferential nature.
In the U.S., the people built a country. In Canada, a state brought a people. Like we were built by top down from England all the way through. The treaties that separatist Albertans are so cheesed off about predate Alberta joining Confederation. All the grievances that Alberta is talking about come down to the fact that they didn't negotiate their way into this. They were colonized. It was like when the English landed in Newfoundland, it wasn't, democratic rule. It was the King of England setting the rules from an ocean away with no relevance to the local context. That's kind of where we are with Alberta now, and that's where the deference is breaking down because they are part of a compact that they don't feel they ever had a voice in creating.
But they certainly wouldn't be alone in that respect then, would they?
No.
Aren't we all part of that same compact?
Well, yes and no. We're like the older brother, though. They're the younger brother. You know what I mean? We set the terms. We didn't get to set our own terms, but we sure as heck Laurentian consensus the terms out of them. So, yeah, we have our own constitution and sovereignty. We brought it back to Ottawa, but in the process, Alberta never really had a chance for self-determination like the rest of us did.
Right.
And so that's the point I was trying to make, is that the deference is breaking down because we're now at a point where we have a system built on a system built on a system. And I'm not saying they're right. I'm against Alberta separatism. But the recent court decision basically says you guys aren't going to be able to separate because the Laurentian consensus stacked the deck in a way that you're never going to get away with it. And it doesn't matter what you believe.
And this Laurentian consensus to which you refer is this idea that us upper Canadians...
Toronto, Montreal, and lower. Montreal is a big...
Lower, okay.
Yeah, Montreal... The Montreal-Toronto consensus.
Okay. And those are the so-called Laurentian elites that we hear so much about.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Mandarins of Ottawa and the business elites of Toronto and Montreal. Now, it's not so true as it used to be because money and politics don't mix like they used to, thanks to Stephen Harper and Paul Martin. But, yeah.
Do I sense a hint of sympathy in your position on Alberta separatism? Would you not blame them for leaving, for example?
I cannot blame them for being upset. But you and I, if we can segue to the podcast we both listen to, we both listened to the West of Centre podcast that's most recent, and it was a panel of everyday Albertans on Western separation. And you and I both found that discussion so reasonable. And what I got to say is I have no problem sympathizing with their complaints. That said, show me one of these complaints that is ameliorated by separation. That's where I'm having trouble drawing the line. Like, I believe your complaints are legit. For Quebec separation, let's say, I don't believe their complaints are legit because I believe they have all the tools they need to preserve their language in North America right now. However, if I didn't believe they had all those tools, I could understand how separation would give them those extra tools they needed to protect their language. Alberta separating is never going to make getting a pipeline easier. Maybe they are hoping that it's somehow going to let them stymie Aboriginal rights in a way that would be inhumane. But there's no straight line path to that either. And there's no guarantee that those lands would leave with Alberta in the referendum because, like I said, those treaties are post-Confederation, but pre-Alberta.
Bingo.
So there's an extra little twist there. So it's not that I don't have sympathy for their complaints. I just, it's like the little kid who's going to stomp his feet and hold his breath until you change your mind. It's like, well, I understand you're upset, but go ahead.
And as was pointed out in that same podcast, I mean, we don't have a pipeline any more than we have a piece of paper with an understanding, but we need private interests to come in and build this pipeline eventually, if it's ever even going to happen.
The problem with private interests is, I think what the MOU is trying to do is show that all the concerns of the private interests can be addressed. And Danielle Smith is working with a team of CEOs from the Alberta oil industry. She is not doing this out of government. They are working with her on the proposal. They're just not putting dimes on the table until they actually believe the federal government's going to follow through. You may have noticed, was it last week while you were gone, that the federal government is delaying the fast-tracking legislation? So if you're in the private sector, you're thinking about, I'm going to tie up billions of dollars for decades on a construction project. I'm going to make sure it's actually going to have an approval process I trust before I start committing these time and money. Justin Trudeau tainted this process so bad, there's not going to be a private dollar in until people are sure that Mark Carney's fixed it and is more than one leadership convention away from changing back.
Interesting that you bring up Justin Trudeau's name, because I wanted to talk about him in the context of our angry prime minister currently. I think, to me, there are parallels. We'll get into that as we continue our conversation. We're back together, David Drewe. The band has been reunited. It's Drewe's Views on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Monday mornings, 11:30, David Drewe joins us on the show to share his views. It is Drewe's Views from the former Conservative Party staffer and current owner-operator of Negotiating Change, government relations, stakeholder engagement strategies. David, let's talk about, we began with the top-down approach by which our country was built, for crying out loud. It sounds to me like we have a very similar to Justin Trudeau top-down approach from the Prime Minister in his office these days. You can change the person in the office, you don't change the approach?
You don't change the office. I hate the centralization that is occurring at all levels of government into executive offices, but it's a product of our society. When the days of me saying something in Vancouver and news of it reaching Ottawa 6 weeks later are long gone. So, MPs need to respond to questions that they know nothing about. And if they say one little word that's a little bit off from the others, it causes an issue for a backbencher at the other end of the country. So you need that common message. And that means you have to have somebody to pump out the common message. And I hate it. I really, really do. But I'm finding what's so interesting is that Mark Carney's mean.
Well,
he yells, Mike.
A lot of business people that want to get crap done can have a bit of a tone about them.
Now, Jen Gerson was the one who said this first, but, I think a lot of Canadians voted for Mark Carney to yell at Liberals and be mean to them. And every time we hear that he's being mean to caucus, his polls go up. Like Marco Mendicino, remember how Paul Bernardo was being moved into lesser security and Marco Mendicino just hadn't read the email? Might have been a good time for some yelling. Hey, Melanie Jolie, what's this? Russia just invaded Ukraine and you sent a bunch of diplomats to the garden party? Maybe it's a bit of time for yelling. Like, I think a little bit of yelling would have gone a long way over the last decade, and I don't think Canadians are sitting there looking at this and going, no, we need less yelling. If anything, I think they're like, oh, could you do it in public, please? Could you just take one of these people and take them to the woodshed in front of us so we know that there is actual accountability going on? Because for the past 10 years, and probably 10 years before that too, I'll throw Harper in there with this, it was very rare that you saw someone take accountability for their actions or be punished for their actions. So the idea that somebody's actually getting upset about things not being done right or to adequacy, God bless Mark Carney for yelling.
So you like the yelly prime minister?
I like the fact that somebody is actually wanting results. And the idea that you're going to come in there and not know your brief and waste the prime minister of this country's time, somebody should yell at you.
Do you want the member of the caucus to yell at the prime minister? The so-called anonymous letter?
Okay, yeah, the so-called anonymous letter. This is a little bit older now because this happened right after you left. We had 14 anonymous MPs who wrote a letter to the Prime Minister. And we know who one of them was now. It was Stephen Guilbeault. But I'm sorry. These people are being attacked for not having the courage to put their name on the letter. And they did. Mark Carney knows who all 14 members are. The media outlet that got the letter chose not to release the names as a condition of getting the information. So you can quibble with the media outlet protecting these mealy-mouthed cowards. But they're not mealy-mouthed cowards. They put their names on the letter to the person who has the power to kick them out of cabinet forever, deny them committee assignments, send them to no travels, and, just basically give them no profile forever. They put their necks on the line. Would I like them to be public about their views? Yeah. But they're members of the caucus. Of course they shouldn't. So the idea that they're cowards who didn't put their names forward and were hiding behind anonymity is just a slur that we need to nip in the bud. These people put their names on it. The leaker and the media outlet chose not to release the names to the public. But Mark Carney's got a hit list. He might be doing some yelling.
I like the idea of somebody doing some yelling in Ottawa.
It's overdue.
Your notes to me for today's show said that Jan Liggett, the mayor of Cambridge, is all wrong. Why, David Drewe, is Cambridge Mayor Jan Liggett all wrong?
She reminds me of, by the way, let's keep Waterloo scot-free.
Let's do that. It is an election year. Waterloo, the city of Waterloo, should remain scot-free.
Scott Piakowski-free. And this is the tangent I am making. When he shut down that teacher citing the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, it was an abuse of power. When Jan Liggett silenced a youth who is delivering a speech, that was an abuse of power. I don't care whether it's left or right. It's democracy. Let the citizens speak. Now, here's the analogy I'm going to draw. Let's say it wasn't a Pride event. Let's say it was Black History Month. And let's say a young person of color got up and started talking about a racial meme that a counselor had passed or spread around and been sent to sensitivity training for. If the mayor had got up and silenced that person, do you think it would be only a Black collective organization who's speaking out and saying this is wrong? I'm a little bit cheesed about the fact that the only people we hear talking about this complaining is it Tri-City Pride?
And I did see a couple of Cambridge councillors over the weekend expressing their views on social media as well.
Good. Like, that's just it. This cannot be a homophobic issue no, this is a democracy issue.
It's a censorship issue.
It's a democracy issue. And the mayor's job is not to tell the citizens what to say. The citizens' job is to elect the mayor. And it is not up to Jan Liggett to tell anyone whether they should be satisfied with the city ignoring the recommendation from the integrity commissioner, instead just saying sensitivity training. It is not up to them to decide when the herd ends.
I couldn't agree more. And what bothers me...
So just let me go.
Yeah.
We would have no problem calling Jan Leggett a racist if she did the scenario I described. Can I call her a homophobe?
I mean...
we would have no problem calling her a racist if she interrupted a black person under similar circumstances. Can I call her a homophobe, or is that crossing a line?
I don't think that applies in this case, to be honest. I really don't. I don't think it mattered who was doing the speaking. It was just that the mayor
It was
disagreed.
who she felt comfortable bullying.
Maybe.
And I don't know if she would have felt comfortable in the other case because she would have realized how incorrect it was. And that's what I'm trying to draw the line on here. This can't be one group against the city. We have to stand up and say, no, this is not the right thing for the mayor to be doing, regardless of who she's punching down on.
And there was punching down. There is no question about that. Hey, you want to stick around a little longer today?
I've missed you.
I've missed you. I think David has missed you as well. So he's going to stay with us as we open the phone lines for Rant or Rave the next 60 minutes. And David will stick around and we'll talk about the mayor of Cambridge, or we'll talk about the yelling prime minister, or whatever else you happen to want to rant or rave about today. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage out of sight, or you don't go out Friday night.
Don't talk back.
It is that time of the show where we encourage you to do the opposite of the song. Forget the don't talk back. Please do talk back. And in keeping with tradition on this program, Mondays are reserved for your rants and or raves. So you rant because you're upset about something. You rave because you're not. And how could you possibly be upset or handle school on a day like today? Whatever it is, a rant or a rave, you can do it by calling 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. I will quickly start with an email from Clinton. I will call this a rant to Mike at 570news.com. And Clinton's email says, Kyle's ban was too easy. Mike, I was checking out the Farwell for Hire 50-50 raffle, and I think you might have made this challenge way too easy. Kyle has barely had to suffer for his crimes. You'll probably hit the $35,000 take-home by Wednesday. Okay, the 50-50 raffle right now has an overall jackpot of almost $66,000, a take-home prize of almost $33,000. That's pretty good. And when the jackpot gets to $70,000 and the take-home prize to $35,000, we are letting Kyle out of the penalty box. Kyle is in the penalty box because he invoked the name of the team that shall not be named. And he did so with intent. While I was away, he took advantage of the supply teacher. And I figured, we'll raise... Maybe Kyle has some wealthy friends. I don't know. But we're raising money for charity along
Kyle's
the way.
one of my favorites, though.
Well,
he has so much excitement. Nobody screams into the phone like Kyle.
I have heard a few people suggest that it's best for their ears that he's not here for a while. But he's a very bad boy, David Drewe, and that's why we put him in the penalty box. But
all this trouble over a toilet seat team.
Oh, exactly. But he is getting close to getting out, and I am getting close to being able to eat a butter tart again. So think about me here, too. And don't forget to get your 50-50 tickets at cf5050.ca. There is a $1,500 cash prize from the Better Business Bureau being awarded on Friday. You could win that $1,500 and you're still in for the overall jackpot. Now, Clinton's email does go on to say, next time, the milestone should be much bigger. When the raffle hits a $70,000 take-home, so a $140,000 jackpot, you could do a full show where people are actually allowed to say the name of the team that shall not be named, on purpose, with witnesses. If that doesn't motivate the fan base, nothing will. Clinton, I will accept no more of your ideas. That is never happening. Never am I going to open up the floor for that kind of profanity on this show. Anyway. Get a 50-50 ticket at cf5050.ca. Help us raise money for cystic fibrosis research help Kyle get out of the penalty box, and allow me to eat a butter tart. David Drewe is sticking around with us for your rants or raves today, so he is as excited as I am to hear from you. And something else that we wanted to talk about, David and I, since when did the city of Toronto get into the ticket scalping business? And didn't the province of Ontario ban this practice anyway? Like, what is happening?
Okay, my favorite. I heard Olivia Chow's defense of this, and she's not the greatest communicator strategically. But she came out and said basically two things in defense. Number one is, we weren't making a profit off this. We're a city. Okay, like that makes a difference to the person who's being scalped. And, well, when we bought the tickets, this law wasn't in, this new policy she called it, not law, wasn't in place. And, well, I'm thinking, there was a whole lot of other people who bought FIFA World Cup tickets planning to scalp them who ended up in the same boat as you, but because they're not the government, they ended up having to follow the law or risk consequences. So I don't know what is going on with this. I don't understand. I could understand if the city was buying tickets to give away to certain groups or to charities to auction off or something like that. But just the idea of we're going to buy a block of tickets and sell them at a profit? And, okay, I'd really like to file the FOI and find out how many staff members were hired to administer this ticket scalping program and at what rate were they paid. What were their benefits? You know what I mean? Paid vacation? Like how long? Anyway, I have no idea what's going on with this, but it's like the Jan Liggett thing. There's the initial action, and then there's the explanation, and it's the explanation from Jan Wong that's really got me going, you don't even know you have nothing to say. You're not saying sorry. You're not saying we're not going to do it. You're not saying you've broken the law. Apparently you violated a policy, but I don't know where to go with it, Mike. I really do find it hilarious that once again, government can do things, it's good for thee, but not for me sort of thing.
As a professional communicator, David, and somebody that worked in that role when you were with Harold Albrecht, the MP for Kitchener-Conestoga, help me understand this a little bit better, because I might take it back to how we started Drew's Views this morning, just after 11:30, with how deferential we are as Canadians. I don't know, but I feel as though we're giving out free passes like popsicles at a summer fair. Like, it's just, to me, the 4 o'clock Friday afternoon news dump is like, sorry, but Jan Liggett used that, and it's a one-sided 10-minute social media video. So no questions asked. You're controlling the narrative. The tail is wagging the dog, etc.
And look how successful that was, because here we are on Monday afternoon, and we're not even talking about the initial incident. We're now talking about her crap-assed communications around the initial incident. So, yeah, she tried, but I'd like to know who was advising her to tell her a 10-minute video that's going to be up there to be parsed forever, every little clip taken out of context. Or you and I can just still sit here and talk about it's just a crap tactic and she did wrong. That 10-minute video released on a Friday afternoon, it got her some headlines. I don't think it won her any sympathy. I don't think it put this issue back in the box for her. Like, she probably should have just said nothing. But just like the initial incident, she probably just should have done nothing, and then she just should have taken the hit afterwards.
And the hit from who afterwards? Adam Cooper? The person she was trying to protect by cutting off Sophie
I just
Mills?
mean after she shouldn't have got up, and yeah, if there was a hit from Adam Cooper, but after she did get up and do the wrong, rather than releasing a video on a Friday afternoon, she just shut up and put her head in the sand and wrote it out instead of trying to explain it away on a Friday afternoon.
How about this? I mean, work with me on this. Mm-hmm. If I were helping to craft the follow-up, I'm sorry. How hard is that? Because that did not come out in the 10-minute video.
And
that is so easy.
I do not want to read into her heart because I do not know her. But I think the reason she didn't say I'm sorry because she's not sorry.
Or she doesn't think she has anything to be sorry for.
Well, that's just it. If you don't think you have anything sorry for, you're not sorry. Fair. It's the same thing. But I do not believe that she feels she did anything wrong. And same with Scott Piatkowski. I don't believe that he felt he did anything wrong. And that's why people like this should be away from democracy.
Let's keep the city of Waterloo scot-free in this election. In fact, I ran into a lovely Ward 5 candidate for Waterloo this past weekend. So
what's the name?
I wish them very much success in their efforts to win the Ward 5 seat in Waterloo. It's just important we keep it scot-free. Simple as that. But back to the question. How did we get here? How did we become so complacent or deferential as people that mayors think they can get away with Friday afternoon news dumps and treating people like this in our democracy? I'm worried about it, David.
I want to choose my words carefully here because I do not believe Dorothy McCabe or Barry Verbanovic or any of my other small town mayors. I don't believe Joe Nowak would ever shut someone down for something like this. So you know what I mean? I don't want to say mayors.
Okay.
I want to say Jan Liggett. And I want to say Cambridge has some issues because it seems like over the past couple of years, we talk about Cambridge having issues. You know, wasn't it the Scoldy Cartoon City? Wasn't that Cambridge as well?
No, the Scoldy Cartoon City, wasn't that was Waterloo, wasn't it, when Brenda Halloran was mayor?
No, this was more recent than this was in the past little while.
Oh, right. The AI generated characters to calm the citizenry down because they were upset about snow plowing. Yes.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Like it just sort of seems like there is this approach out of Cambridge where they are very willing to scold citizens. And whether it's Jan Liggett at a Pride event or it's their memes on don't get upset about our bad snow clearing. Like, I don't want to say bad snow clearing because we've had a couple exceptionally bad winters. And if the cities were budgeting for these winters every year, we would be wasting so much money on snow equipment and contracts we don't need. You got to pick what is a reasonable guess. So we had a couple of bad years, but the solution is not to scold the citizens. And, you know, Kitchener didn't do that. Waterloo didn't do that. But in Cambridge, this seems to be the instinct out of City Hall. So I don't want to say mayors because this does not seem to be a local mayor's or a huge thing. This just seems to be a local thing. I don't want to say it's even a Jan Liggett thing because there have been other issues coming out of Cambridge as well that seem quite unique. So,
interesting times indeed. Ida was the young woman's name running in Ward 5 in Waterloo. So I know we have a Victoria and we have an Ida running in Ward 5 in Waterloo. So options aplenty for you.
You have many ways to keep Waterloo scot-free.
We do, indeed. David Drewe is with us on Rant or Rave this afternoon, where your voice is always welcome with those rants and raves on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Our good friend David Drewe, who joins us weekly for Drew's Views, stays in studio with us for Rant or Rave this Monday afternoon. And to the phones we go to hear from Rob. Good afternoon, Rob.
Yeah, hi. Just wanted to call in with a rant and a rave kind of thing. Just off politics for a second, back to sports. Cool. I've been a huge Toronto Maple Leaf fan forever. You know, you get your favorite players over the years, and one of my favorite players recently was Mitch Marner. I just want to give him a big rave of what he's doing over there in Las Vegas, kicking some butt this weekend with the hat trick. And the rant kind of goes the other way, is how come all these players leave Toronto and do well in other markets? It's kind of, what do we got to do here to keep them here and do well here? It just seems like it's they leave us and they do well somewhere else.
Rob, appreciate the call. Great question.
I think you can't underestimate that Toronto is probably the hardest city in the league to play hockey in.
Couldn't agree more.
Where he is now, does anybody even care about Mitch Marner in their local paper or on the newscasts? Hockey is not the thing it is in Toronto, whereas in Toronto, everything you do is scrutinized and... Well, also, Toronto's a loser organization. But
here's what I'm starting to wonder, David, and because I think you're absolutely hitting the nail on the head here. Mm-hmm. And so it requires a very special kind of player. And when you think now that it's 59 years since the Leafs last won a Stanley Cup, I'm not sure a player this special or specialized exists. I'm not sure a human this specialized, or a group of them, exist. In 1967, it was a far different media landscape. So It's virtually impossible, I submit to you, to find the collection of players that can not only compete at the level necessary to win one of the hardest trophies in sports, but also deal with the constant scrutiny of one's life off the ice.
Bingo. And that's just it. You're not looking for a specialty set. You are looking for all the skills you normally need anyway, plus the ability to live your life in a fishbowl. So the challenge there is not, hey, but how do you figure out if somebody's going to be able to live in the spotlight of Toronto by their behavior in Buffalo?
I know.
Like, there's no way to know until they get there. And there's also really no way to know if you're supporting them correctly as the organization. Like, the experience you as the general manager and the coaches bring from other organization does not necessarily prepare you to go, and this is how you players thrive under the spotlights of Toronto. Toronto has it harder than we like to say, but I still like to pick on them.
I love to pick on Toronto. I think there are great reasons to pick on Toronto. And Rob, I wish I could be as magnanimous as you are. I want Mitch Marner to lose. I want him to lose so bad because I wanted him to win here. Like, well, anyway, I'll just leave it there. Let's go next to Sean, who is here on Rant or Rave, Farwell's Force member number 165. Hello, Sean.
Hi, good afternoon. Yeah, I've been watching our Mayor Liggett for a bit now. She's always been a bit rough around the edges and says what she thinks, but with this thing with the teenager, I'm thinking she gives the impression she sort of no longer cares, and I'm just sort of wondering if she's done with the whole thing.
No, she's already announced she's running again.
Yeah, but...
Oh, that doesn't mean she's not done.
I'm honestly thinking she's like, I've had enough of this. Okay, what's the replacement word? Stuff. I remember I was on the radio.
Well, it's an interesting premise, Sean. I don't believe that to be the case. I don't think Mayor Liggett is done with anything right now, except probably this issue, which she is not helping go away.
Bingo. I don't know where she's going with this. I honestly do not think this was strategic in any way. I think this was just spur of the moment decision she made. I wonder if she would take it back if she could.
Well, I don't think so, because she had the chance to at least try to take it back in the 10-minute video.
Well, no, there's a difference between apologizing for it and just if she could go back in time and not do it at all. Like, that's I don't believe she thinks she did anything wrong. But I am thinking she probably realizes now the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. You see the difference there. Like, she doesn't think she did wrong, but she thinks she wasted her time.
Right.
Now she made herself look bad for no particular reason, and all these people are taking advantage of her. Like, she's the victim here, Mike. Let's remember.
I'll try to remember that, David. I will try. Let's go next to Camilla, first-time caller on our show. Good afternoon, Camilla.
Hi, good afternoon. I was just tuned in for the first time to your show, and I'm not really sure what I feel about what Jan Liggett did last week. I have a child in the LGB community, so I think my biggest concern over anything is I sit on the Cambridge Advisory Board, and I'd like to know why the city is owed over $59 million in back property taxes. That's more concerning to me than what happened last week. Why aren't they collecting that money? I'm a property owner. If I owed back taxes, they would get their money.
Well, I don't doubt that they're working to get that money. There are collection agencies that are contracted to do that sort of work. That's an interesting position on this. I care less for the social error that was made, and a rather grievous one at that, and I care more about the city's books. Fair enough, I suppose.
That's a very fair view to take. Just because I find something odious and disgusting doesn't mean everybody else is obligated to. But going back to Jan Liggett, though, was there not also an element to that where she misgendered the youth?
Yes, she did. Well, it just didn't use the they-them pronouns, yes.
And her apology for that was, well, they aren't generally part of my vocabulary. This was a pride event.
And Sophie was invited to speak, which you would prepare oneself, right?
Exactly. You know what I mean? There's in politics, you have to use a whole lot of phrases that aren't part of your general everyday usage, because generally every day you're not at a pride event. You're not at Black History Month. You're not at German Heritage Day. You're not at. You have to get used to these things. And the fact that this event was the one where she thought, I don't need to bother. It stacks up with the other things.
What I said earlier today, David, when I talked about this, and we've only got about 30 seconds, but I don't know why this is so hard for us. Why do we make this so difficult? Oh, that's not part of my everyday vocabulary. Oh, the pride flag makes me feel this.
Okay.
Makes me. Why don't we just shut up sometimes?
I'm going to tease everybody off in the remaining 10 seconds.
Okay.
You want me to call you they, them? I'm very happy to. You want me to put my gender identifiers in an email? Screw you. Like, you know what I mean? I will happily refer to you however you want. But
that's all we're asking. But why won't we?
But I'm not going to get into this whole idea of telling you how to refer to me.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But
there's a lot of places you work where you will get in trouble if you don't put the he, him down.
All right, we're going to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. We're going to continue ranting and or raving because that's what we do here on Monday afternoons, noon to 1 on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every day, noon until 1, we open our phone lines and allow you the chance to weigh in on the issues of the day, or maybe you wish to make something the issue of the day. Rob called before. He just wanted to congratulate Mitch Marner and wonder what in HE double hockey sticks makes the Leafs so bad every year. Hey, we're here to entertain those conversations. On Mondays, your Talkback Hour is for your rants and or raves, and David Drewe has stuck around to enjoy the rant or rave hour with us today. Let's get right back to the phones for Dave from Cambridge. Good afternoon, Dave.
Good afternoon, Mike. I'd like to give a shout-out to the teenager sensation for successfully his 5th consecutive F1 race, winning it, and he's been just unbelievable, and he's done it now his 5th in a row. So that's my shout out. Have a great day, and that's it.
All right, Dave. Thank you. I have no idea who Dave is talking about.
There was F1 Monaco over the weekend.
Sure. I don't, open wheel racing, I don't follow at all.
But seriously, this is just the funny thing. The only reason I know that is for some reason my phone sent me a notification telling me. Nice. So I'm like, I've never watched racing in my life, so I have no idea why my phone thought this was of interest to me. But
so okay. There's a teenager driving in F1. I thought I heard Dave call him the teen sensation.
Yeah, and apparently 5 wins. So
all right. Well, listen, I'll tell you. So I was not a teenager. I was in my early 20s. And I got the chance whilst working in Thunder Bay because we were having some sort of race up there. And I got to get into a CAS car and give her a little go. And let me tell you, she went. That is, I like things that go fast. I always have. But this car was something to behold. And that was just a stock car, if you will. So
cool.
It was kind of neat. All right. Clinton sends an email to Mike at 570news.com. And it's a question about effective voter outreach. Clinton has his eyes set on a seat with our public school board in October. So Clinton's email reads as follows. I usually see lawn signs, flyers, and pamphlets for city and regional councillors, but I don't see much in the way of signage for school board trustee candidates. Since I'm running for the Waterloo Region District School Board, and this is my first time entering politics, I'm trying to understand what's actually effective. I would appreciate your insight. This gets right to the heart of something for me. I've never really appreciated the signs, David, because I think that the signs, at least on public property, just becomes a sign war. Who has the biggest signs? Who has the most signs? I don't mind if you earn the media and somebody allows you to put it on their property, but what would you say is the most effective way of outreach for a candidate?
Okay, first of all, signs are absolutely amazing, but, signs in ditches are just a sign that you have a sign. It still helps with your name recognition, especially in a lower tier race like school board. So if the option of putting a sign in a ditch is available to you according to the city or regional road bylaws where you are posting and they are different, so you need to know which type of road you are on, I take advantage of it running for school board. But the next question about signs is, well, if you're going to put them in people's yards, whose yards are they going to be? And politics is really all about list building. What you need to have are addresses of people who are willing to host signs, people who you know are going to vote for you so you can get them out to the voter office. And the easiest way to network your. I'm sorry, was this a young person? I know they were running for the first time, but I can't recall if they said their age.
He's mid-30. I don't think Clinton's turned 40 yet.
Okay. So, yeah, you have an established network at this point. So what you want to be doing is having people host you and have their friends over who are school board voters. And you just sit there and you talk to them. And hopefully by the end of it, they're willing to give you their home address and you have another place for a sign. And maybe, just maybe, you can turn it on to one of them and go, would you like to host one of these for some of your friends so I can have this exact same experience? And it's sort of a weird thing to put yourself out like that. And a lot of people wouldn't want to do that. But Mike, you do Farwell for hire. You understand that generally if you ask somebody for help, they want to help. So like that is the number one piece of advice is, yeah, I'd go with signs, but you need lists and you need to ask for help. So you need to structure your ask. Do you need money? No. All you need are signs. Like what else are you going to be budgeting? Signs and some literature. What you really need are names and introductions. So spend your time networking out. Get one person to introduce you to 8, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's the best advice I can give in 30 seconds.
All right. Clinton, there you go. Straight from a guy who's been a part of a campaign or two in his lifetime.
I've won and I've lost. And winning is better.
I love winning. It's like so much better than losing. Mary is next on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon, Mary.
Good afternoon. Hi, David.
Hello. I missed you.
I miss you. My God, where were you? But anyway, Mike's been tooting around the world. Anyway, I just thought I'd let you know I'm old enough to have known the glory days of the Maple Leafs. And my uncle was Howie Meeker.
the former MP for Kitchener-Conestoga.
I don't think Howie Meeker was ever an MP.
Howie Meeker was the Member of Parliament for Kitchener-Conestoga.
Really?
I learned this when he was inducted into the Order of Canada because Harold was invited as the current MP for Kitchener-Conestoga.
Yeah.
So I got to read all about Howie Meeker, and I have Howie Meeker's autograph.
Well, guess what? So do I.
Well, no, but this is a really weird story. I think Harold's kind of still grouchy at me about this because he went to the Order of Canada ceremony and Robbie Robertson was also being inducted.
Yes.
And so I just kept saying, Harold, can you get me Robbie Robertson's autograph? Can you get me Robbie Robertson's autograph? So he did. And in that same one program is an autograph for Harold from Howie Meeker.
Ooh.
So Harold was giving that to me with like that, I don't want to give it to you.
Yeah, well, there's guys here that I talk to walking around the street, and they're Maple Leafs, and I say, "Do you want me to bring out the crying towel?" However, I have a signed picture of Howie Meeker, Rookie of the Year, 1947. I have him with the Stanley Cup signed. I have his book signed, and he has passed away. He was 97, and I said to him, I always called him on his birthday at least. And I said, I'm hanging on to all this memorabilia till you die because, or I said, snuff it. Pardon me, I didn't say die. Snuff it. And then it's going to get more money.
Okay.
I'm a bit of a, what would you call it, David?
A stickler?
Opportunist?
An opportunist.
Oh, I respect that. I call that scamming. Whenever I get away with something that I feel like I shouldn't have, I call it scamming. Oh, I just scammed this. It's like, well, what did you do? Well, I talked the guy down 30 ducks. By the way, Howie Meeker not only played in the NHL and served as Member of Parliament, he did it simultaneously.
Wait a minute. I thought Norm Jerry, who was the mayor of Guelph and also called hockey games for the old Guelph Platers, I thought that was the only double dip like that. He was the MP and in the NHL at the same time?
Yeah. He is one of the he's one of the few NHL players to serve as an MP while still active in the league. So apparently he wasn't the only one. So going back to when the Leafs lost the cup, it was a very different time.
It was a very
You
different
could be
time.
a part-time member of Parliament and a part-time pro hockey player winning Stanley Cups.
Amazing.
Yeah. Well, you know, Howie was hit in the knee in the Second World War.
I now that you say that, I do remember that.
Yeah, and he still was a good hockey player. And his family bought a hotel in New Hamburg, and that's where they lived. And he married my dear Aunt Grace, and so he loved the rum. Screech. And if he ever came up and visited, it would be Screech pancakes in the morning. Woo-hoo!
Love it. Mary, it's great to hear from you today. Thank you.
And like, seriously, I really was not expecting to be talking Howie Meeker stories. This made my day. Thank you.
There you go. Howie Meeker, the former MP and NHLer. Phil is next on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon, Phil.
Well, after those great stories, the first thing I'm going to say, if you're going to shoot the puck, kids, hit the net. I love Howie.
That's the Howie Meeker I remember on Hockey Night in Canada way back when.
Oh, beautiful. My stuff is going to be a bit of a rave, just because, as we all know, Rush was on tour last night. And my shout out is to all the people who've never got to see bands like Rush, April Wine, Guess Who, all these bands are out there. Triumph is wrapping up. I was fortunate I had older siblings, so I got to go to concerts in the 70s and 80s. So I saw a lot of bands on the first run. Saw Rush at University of Guelph with Max Webster at the Athletic Center, the basketball court. I think it was the Moving Pictures tour. But for all these people who never got to go and they're out there having a great time, have a super time. I see sometimes people are like, oh, that's a different key, or they should have had this and that. Just go in and have the band's smiling, the fans are smiling. Forget what any of the naysayers say. Have yourself a great time at those concerts. People have been playing 40, 50, 60 years. Go out there and enjoy yourselves. Have a great time at those concerts.
All right, Phil, appreciate that. David, has there been a concert that you regretted not getting to?
Oh, a million.
Yeah.
A million.
I've always wanted to see the Stones, and I remember like probably 20 years ago, maybe even 30 now, a buddy of mine and I were like, they're coming through Toronto again, but are they going to be any good at this age? And now look at them still. Anyway.
But as to what he was saying about, the players not being what they used to be, I saw Ian Anderson's Jethro Tull at Budweiser stage in Toronto. And the reviews afterwards, they were like, oh, he needed the rest of the band to be carrying his voice because he doesn't have the range he used to. And it's like, yeah, but they did it brilliantly. Like, it was just so good. And if you are not comparing the live show from 40 years ago to the live show of today, it's bloody amazing. So a first-time person going is going to have an amazing time. And, yeah, you can sit there and say Eric Clapton doesn't have the energy he used to. It's true. He's not on heroin anymore. I'll take it.
There you go. And enjoy, and live music, nothing beats it. Rant or Rave continues on the Mike Farwell Show this afternoon, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Hazard. We are winding down our Monday edition of the Talkback Hour, where you get the chance to rant or rave. Rant because you're upset about something. Rave because you ain't. Do either of those things with one phone call to us at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Larry, you are next on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Actually, I haven't got a rant or rave. I listen to Mike all the time, and I heard him 5 or 10 minutes ago talking about Norm Jerry, the late mayor of Guelph.
Yes, sir.
Well, not only did Norm Jerry call the Guelph Storm games or the Guelph
Platers back then, New York Rangers, right?
That's right.
Yes, sir. But he wasn't still the mayor when he did that. I don't think.
Yeah. Well, I was a friend of his, and I remember him telling me about flying down Friday nights to New York and calling the games, and then coming back Sunday nights.
I'll be darned. I did not know that.
But Mike did mention that about calling the Ranger game, so I just thought I'd throw that in.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Larry.
Okay.
All right. Have a great day.
Cool. You too.
Okay. Bye-bye. I love it when I'm talking to somebody that doesn't know they're talking to me.
Well, that's just it. I felt like he was trying to tell me the story about you, but I'm not the host here, but he keeps talking about Mike in the third person, so I felt like he was talking to me, but I'm not going to start interrupting and hijacking.
Well, I did. Maybe Norm was the mayor while he called New York Rangers games. I don't think so. I think he was. I know he was the mayor and called Guelph Platers games, but not the New York Rangers. I think that was after his mayoralty reign had ended.
And that's the other reason I wasn't going to jump into that conversation, because I don't know.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. Who doesn't love, though, a guy that can be the mayor and call the games for the local hockey team, huh?
As opposed to the mayor now, who, anyway, next.
Okay, Greg is next on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon, Greg.
Hi, Mike. One of each today for you.
Okay.
Let's start with the rave. That asparagus yesterday. Oh, wow. I don't know. That should be on restaurant menus somewhere. Like, they should check it out, and that would sell like wildfire, I think.
I was talking to Brad Schmuck from the Schmuck Truck about the origins of this whole fundraising idea, and it was simply that he had a pre-existing relationship with Tim Berry and the team at Berry's Asparagus, and he just thought, what would happen if? And so he tried a little bit of this and a little bit of that and came up with the right batter, and next thing you know, deep fried asparagus was born, and we've been using it as a fundraiser since 2018.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential income if they want to expand that more than just your plan. But anyway, no, that's fantastic. Well, I've been there 4 years in a row doing it, so I won't miss it if I can help that.
Good.
And okay, now for the rant. All these speed cameras, yeah, we know they're gone. But every time Sunday morning I go to a favorite breakfast joint, I'm cruising down Fisher-Holman. School zone 40 lights are flashing in front of Forest Heights on a Sunday, like around noon. And everyone's still slowing down like to 40. Can some of these zones where they might have had cameras and hacked down the speed, like, I think they should review them too. And then first of all, on a Sunday, not be worrying about flashing anything school related. And so anyway, it just bugs me. So the cameras are gone.
You want the speed limit back to 50 or 60 or something?
Well, especially that, a two-lane thing, Forest Heights, that's a high school, plus at the same time, it's on a Sunday, their lights are turned on flashing. School zone, 40, it just, one of the more sort of remaining lingering effects of all that don't make sense, and I think that could easily be just shut them off, and yeah, I don't think 50 was ever a problem, not in that particular zone, leave some of these other 30s and 40s, but a main drag like that, come on with your coming on.
Well said, Greg. David, your thoughts? I feel very strongly about this.
I don't. I'm curious why the lights were flashing on a Sunday, but I assume there was some reason.
I'll tell you the reason. Because our municipal politicians want to make it look like they're doing something. That's the reason, and don't tell me otherwise.
Okay. No,
that's how strongly I feel about this. We're even playing the commercials right now, and God bless the city of Kitchener. We love the revenue for the radio station for Vision Zero. Vision Zero was somebody's idea for infrastructure installers to make money. There are bollards on my street now, David, a street that I have lived on for more than 20 years. Never has there ever been a collision of any kind, but we've got bollards now because clearly it's safer with the bollards. Stop it.
I am not going to say again where I live because I do not want the police to come find it. But on my road, I see everything from horse and buggies to ATVs to golf carts to farm vehicles to speeding motorcycles to pedestrians walking dogs to children on bicycles, and somehow all of it manages to work. I'm looking at this conflagration, and I'm out in the country, and I'm just trying to picture how an average city politician would be sitting there looking at the street and finding all these problems to solve.
Well, that's the thing.
And I'm sitting here going, no, this is a feature, not a bug.
Bingo.
Thank you.
It's like banning right turns on red lights. We've created a solution in search of a problem. Stop it. I do. I feel so strongly about it. You'll read about it in the Waterloo Region Record this Wednesday because I put the finishing touches on my weekly column last night. Let's go to Tammy. One more before Rant or Rave is done. Good afternoon, Tammy.
My rant is I'm very sad about the Crook Street Plaza. They may be going to break it down.
They're going to demolish the Crook Street Plaza. I did not know that.
They put apartments in it.
The whole thing?
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
All right, Tammy. Well, listen, Tammy, thanks for the call. I did see something, and I'm going to have to look at it more closely. See if I can pull it up quickly here. Some, what are those notices that they put in the paper, David? The notices, the things. You're invited to a neighborhood meeting for a proposed development in the Rosemount neighborhood, and is it going to be the 4 buildings, 6 stories in height, a public park, and 300 parking spaces? There you go. Is it the entire plaza? I'm going to look more closely at this.
Well, and there's also the possibility there may be some Main Street businesses on a complex of that size.
Yes, that would be. And listen, as somebody who knows a thing or two about the Crook Street Plaza, I mean, we're not going to miss a lot. Look, it's a good spot, and there's a pizza joint in there I love.
Well, no, but if you are local to the neighborhood, it's walkable.
It is.
And what is the next most walkable thing? And that, I think, is more of the loss than, oh my God, it was that one little pizza place. That was the place for everything that was there, and where do I go next for my... I'm sorry, I'm not even too sure what's in it off the top of my head because I haven't been around there in so many years, but...
We'll keep the street-level retail idea. And Tammy, thank you for this. We'll look into it a little bit further because we know we love what used to be there, and change is hard. And so is saying goodbye. It's been a long time, David, but thank you for being here for extra time today, and we'll look forward to next Monday.
You sure you're going to be here?
I'm positive. I'm back, baby. I'm back.
Okay. I'll see you next Monday then.
I'll see you next Monday then. And we'll talk to you tomorrow beginning at 9. My name is Mike Farwell. You are a force for good. Bye for now.